From the ethereal realm of devotion to the practicality of daily spiritual practice, across the vast landscape of Vedic wisdom and teachings, this is Vaishnava Voices. Hosted by the dynamic husband and wife duo, Srila Das and Dana Devi, they bring to you an intimate exploration of the vibrant world of Vaishnavism. Interweaving ancient scriptures with modern contexts, personal stories with universal lessons, they illuminate the path of love, devotion, and conscious living.
Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone to another episode of Vaishnava Voices. I'm your co-host, Srila Das, and beside me, as always, is the wonderful Dana Devi. Today, as with every episode, we're diving deep into the heart of Vaishnava teachings, exploring the wisdom, culture, and practices that guide us towards a life filled with devotion and service.
That's right, Sitapati. We are thrilled to have you on this journey with us. Whether you are a seasoned devotee, a spiritual seeker, or simply curious about Vaishnavism, here in Vaishnava Voices, we are all about fostering connection, understanding, and growth. And remember, we are not
weird. I don't know what's happening there.
We are also experiencing.
Something funny happened on the way to the introduction, but here we are. Welcome to another episode of Vaishnava Voices. To our two viewers live at the moment, and one on YouTube, one on Facebook. Feel free to leave a comment, questions through the whole thing. I'm your host, Srila Das.
And my name is Dana Devi.
And welcome to Radha Ramana Das, phoning it in from India. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
All the way from India. Please send some warmth.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I got more than enough here.
Please send it. I will send some cool air here to your place.
As you can probably tell, it's a little bit cold here in New Zealand. We got it all going on. Yeah. Today's episode, cut out Garuda's tongue. I sent him a message about it. He was like, oh, looks great. But why the violent, put that in your ear. Yeah, why the violent title? To which I said it's a brilliant strategic move, because if Radha Ramana Das wins and proves that your paper is offensive to Srila Prabhupada, he has three options, according to the Shastra. He has to either commit suicide, cut out Garuda's tongue, or go away from the place to bathe himself in the Ganges to purify having heard such an offense. So there's no way you can lose, really, given that situation.
No, right? There's another option. You have to defeat the person.
Exactly. Well, let's see if we can. Let's see if we can do that. The reason I'm so good is because I learn from my defeats. Everyone who has ever defeated me, I've absorbed their technique. So that's what I'm here for. For those who are watching and don't know, there were a number of people who were very critical of my performance in the Garuda Das conversation. Accused me of being sold out to the Illuminati, got my marching orders from the Freemasons, softball pitched him. And I was like, hey, if you can give me the Astra, the killer argument that can take out Garuda Das Kaviraj, I'm all for it, because, if I can do that, I'll be a Digvijay Pundit, I'll be famous. So I've got an open mind here. Here to hear it. Anything that you want to say, Dana Devi, before we...
I'm here with open-minded to hear your angle of vision, perspective, and on the way learning how, and why you came in with all of this perspective. So it will be enlivening for me, learning from other people, understanding yourself, your way of thinking. Yeah, so I'm open-minded.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's something I don't think I agree with you, but I'm not sure that I understand your position. That's what we're going to find out today. But one thing that I do want to acknowledge is that everyone who came on and critiqued my performance on Facebook, I gave everyone the opportunity to come on the show. You were the only person who stepped up out of the comments section. So I want to acknowledge that. That takes courage and conviction. The other thing is, and I shared this with Garuda Das, I said, look, when we're talking about cutting out the tongue, that can be creatively interpreted, like Ashvatthama's cutting off of the head got commuted to like a bad haircut, you know? So one thing that I do know, and we're gonna pitch this, make sure you give me the URL for it. You have a petition to have Anuttama Das fired from the GBC, I think, for, you know, something similar, which kind of in a way is like cut out his tongue, right? In a modern kind of context. Yeah, so I respect that. I might not agree with it, but I respect it. Let's find out if I agree with it or not. That's what we're all about today. So Radha Ramana Das, Prabhu, let people know who you are and how you want them to know you. Okay. A chance to introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'll just start saying, please accept my dandavats to yourself and Dana Devi Mataji. And dandavats to all the viewers. Let's hope my insignificant self can say something that can, you know, help the situation, improve everyone's Krishna consciousness. Okay, so just me as a person, I'm just, I joined maybe in like 2000 from university preaching, and I was a brahmachari for some years, mainly book distribution, and now I'm just grihastha, married, working, you know, like that's nothing special. Okay, so that's me. So, okay, so if we have a look, there's three claims I want to make about this paper when the master speaks. Okay, first of all is that it's blaspheming Srila Prabhupada, and then second of all, I'd say that it's blaspheming Shastra, and that third, I'd say that it's giving a deviated, concocted interpretation of Shastra. Okay, so in the paper there are 15 headings. So I thought we could like systematically go through these 15 headings. Obviously the most juice in the end.
Okay, I can also bring it up on screen. So what we'll do here is let's bring the article under discussion onto the page so we can see it. So we want to get the When the Master Speaks tab. The other thing that I'll do is this is available from Garuda Das's garudadas.com/articles, but you can get it from garudadas.com. So if you're watching this live or later and you want to follow along at home, here's how you can do that. That there is where you can get this article from. When the Master Speaks, Ways of Understanding Srila Prabhupada's Challenging Teachings and Form of Discourse, Graham M. Schweig, Christopher, Newport University, Graduate Theological Union, USA. 3 claims here that it's blaspheming Srila Prabhupada, it's blaspheming Shastra, and it gives a deviated interpretation of Shastra. Okay?
Correct.
Okay, let's do it.
Sounds exciting.
Okay.
Blasphemy and deviation. Great, yeah. Ooh. I'm excited.
Slush.
Okay, so the first is his introduction, the nature of the study. Okay. So he gives this, his main problem statement he gives. You know, why did Prabhupada make assertions that can too easily appear to outsiders and even to self-honest followers to be irrational, prejudicial, racist, misogynist, careless, unsupported, excessively or harsh mentally judgmental, etc.? How are devotees to understand and explain such assertions? And I will argue that extraordinary tools are needed to solve the challenges that arise within Prabhupada's discourse. And they
Let me
can
just
be
find this part here. I got it.
hidden
here.
Within the essential teachings
that he himself offered. Yeah. Okay.
You found it?
Yep, it's on page number. There's no number on there. It's on 74. So the second page of the article, page 74.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought first we should understand the fundamental ideas that he's discussing here. Like, what is racism, misogynism, bigotry in general? Like, from the different perspectives, you know, like from the kind of Western cultural perspective you have, like, I mean, it basically comes from the US Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all, says men, but obviously all humans are created equally, are created equal, and they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that is really kind of the basic idea, and everyone thinks, wow, this is a very nice idea, and sure, it has some truth to the idea. It is a good idea, but from the basic Krishna conscious perspective, we understand there's karma, there's reincarnation. All people are not born equal. You know, our births are not equal. That's unfortunate truth, and I find a lot of devotees, even very senior devotees, just do not like that truth. You know, they do not like to accept that everyone is not born equal.
So, are you not making his point right now? Are you not making the point he's making? You're saying that even senior devotees do find some of those things to be racist. He's not saying that they are racist. He's saying that some people find them
just don't accept this idea that people are not born equal.
Yeah, so that's exactly what this says.
Yeah, but that's not
exactly
a
what
problem
Garuda
with
said.
Prabhupada or a problem with Shastra. That's their personal problem. So,
yeah, he doesn't say that. But do you see how you're actually making the same point that he's making here?
Yeah. I'm not getting into. I'm just establishing the basic
creating the context.
Yeah. Okay. So statements like women are less intelligent, women should not be given independence, like one birth is better than another birth. You know, these things would be seen according to that, woke, liberal definition, that these are racist statements. But then Prabhupada would counter, well, if everyone's equal, how come the woman can get pregnant and the man cannot get pregnant? Is that a sexist statement? No one's going to say, no, this is a sexist statement, because it's obvious, it's a fact. It's not that
I'd say that was a sexist statement. Okay. Simply because it's a discrimination on the basis of sex. That's literally the definition of sex.
Yeah, but it's a fact. It is a fact. Yeah. Men cannot get pregnant. That is a fact.
Reality is sexist.
Find faults with you. How dare you say something like that? We're going to block you. You're saying men can't get pregnant. It's a fact. But as far as from people who accept the Vedic definition that women are less intelligent, is a fact. It's not that we're saying it because we have something against women. It's simply a fact. Because we get our knowledge not from speculations and experiments. We get our knowledge from Shastra, and that's what Shastra says. It's not that Prabhupada had something against women, therefore he's saying these things. It's right there in Shastra. I can read for you. Let me give you a verse here. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 25, verse 30. My dear son Kapila, after all, I'm a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you'll kindly explain it to me, that even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Okay, you could say this verse is talking about herself personally, but there's more verses, like in the 4th canto. Therefore, Sati left her husband, Lord Shiva had given her half his body due to affection, breathing very heavily because of anger, bereavement. She went to the house of her father. This less intelligent act was due to her being a weak woman. It's now 4th canto, chapter 4, verse number 3. It's directly in the text. It's not Prabhupada's purport or anything. And here's another verse. Yeah, bro?
Well, so then the question is, why did Prabhupada, and also Shastra, maybe you could say, but why did Prabhupada make assertions that can too easily appear to outsiders to be misogynistic? Like, as you say, the woke ideologues, the modern audiences conditioned by that, they're going to say this is misogynistic, right? So
yes.
Are you not acknowledging the problem statement here, right? So
what I'm saying is Prabhupada is not doing it out of his own personal vendetta against women. He's simply repeating what is in Shastra. That is, there's no fault on his side. It's not he's doing it out of some.
I get that, but the paper doesn't say that.
And whatever,
Okay.
Because as we go further in this paper, you see that Garuda is saying that these are because of Prabhupada's conditioning as a colonial. He doesn't directly
Yes.
say it.
So this
Heard it
okay. He doesn't directly say it. So yeah, let's get into this. Like, this is the thing. You see, you're not arguing against Garuda Das right now. You're actually agreeing with him.
I'll show you later in the paper. We'll get into specific things. He's not. I mean, he's very diplomatic. He's not going to like go right out there and give you something to hit on his head. You have to go into the subtleties of what he's saying.
You have to like add your interpretive theory on top. Okay.
So yes, but of course, all I'm saying, my point is that these ideas come from Shastra. Prabhupada's not making it up. He's not doing it out of some personal vendetta or his conditioning as a colonial Indian. That's a load of nonsense. You know?
Well, you're arguing against Conte's theory in that statement there.
No,
right?
no, Garuda makes the same argument in his paper. I'll show you later.
In this paper? Okay, I want to see this because I haven't been able to find it.
Yes, he does. Okay. But now there is Krishna conscious bigotry. You know, that is a Surik Varnashram, you know, where we disrespect people on the basis of their birth, you know, and whether it's women or in this race, that race, you know, that kind of thing is not acceptable. There's a genuine point to be made. You know, there's an essence, there's a truth in this idea of egalitarianism. We're all equal, because the truth is that we are all spiritually equal. On the absolute platform, we are equal. Everyone should be given respect, and everyone should feel some love and respect, and that is genuine. You know, like I have a nice quote here from Prabhupada. He says, "Now another thing, that girls should not be taken as inferior. You see, sometimes scripture we say woman is a cause of bondage. So that should not be, aggravated. That should not be aggravated. The woman is inferior. Something like that. So the girls who come, you treat them nicely. After all, anyone who's coming to Krishna consciousness, man or woman, boys or girls, they are welcome. They are very fortunate. Any idea, and that is the idea of addressing Prabhu. You are my master. Prabhu means master, and Prabhupada means many masters who bow down at his lotus feet. That is Prabhupada. So each and every one shall treat each other as my master. This is Vaishnava. And you can see in Prabhupada's ISKCON, you know, the devotees that are there, they'll say it was different. There was more of a family kind of mood, and everyone felt respected. And, you know, later after Prabhupada's death, maybe in certain places, people felt this kind of Asuric Varnashram, where it was all about, you know, I'm this body and you're that body, and exploiting and, looking down on people, this kind of vibe. But that doesn't come from Prabhupada. It doesn't come from Prabhupada's teachings, you know. And everyone who associated with Prabhupada, they all say how respectful Prabhupada was. Even if someone was like Allen Ginsberg, he was gay, you know, and Prabhupada was always friendly to him, and even devotees use this as evidence. Oh, when Prabhupada associated with gays, he was so nice and friendly. That means he's pro-gay. But we know in his teaching he's not.
There's no argument against Garuda here. Like,
yeah, I'm just establishing the foundation here. Okay.
That
Prabhupada's, you know, this was Prabhupada's ISKCON. There wasn't disrespect to people based on their body type and all that. Okay, so let's move on to actual Prabhupada. So we move to the second heading, the Master's Challenges.
Let's move to the blasphemy.
Well, that's right at the end there.
Okay. The Master's Challenges, yep.
Cherry. Okay. So he goes a little bit into what is Prabhupada's conditioning. He says, this character in part is naturally shaped by the Indian cultural milieu in which he was raised, the life of Krishna Bhakti, which he entered, and later by the cultural environs of the West and the rest of the world, which Prabhupada interacted while delivering his teachings. So it goes a little bit into that, not too heavy or anything like that. So that's fine. We can move on to the next heading, which is challenges.
I'd just like to make a point to that here. So it says here his teachings carry a distinct character and personality. Okay, beyond just their orally transmitted style. Okay, I was going to say that, definitely reading Srila Prabhupada's original manuscripts or listening to his classes, you can hear that he speaks Indian English, right? Even the choice of spelling that he uses. So without a doubt, that's a factor, as you acknowledged.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's borderline, nothing there that's too hectic. Okay. So then paragraph heading 3, challenges for followers and outsiders. So he goes a bit into essential, non-essential teachings. So that's fine, no problem with that. Then the next one is the absolute authority of the Guru's words. So he says something interesting on page 6 of the kind of normal pages. It's the PDF pages. It says that the bhaktas become very mature and they can use their inner sense of things and sense whether something feels right or feels wrong. So that's an interesting little gem there, which we can refer to later. Okay. So then again, he goes a bit into higher and lower teachings, which is fine. Okay, then we go to now heading 5, which is a discourse on vairagya, carelessness. So now he starts to really rip into Prabhupada here.
Okay, here we go. Shishupal in the house.
So now on page 8 of the PDF page, he says, careless statements and assertions about worldly subject matters that he never bothered to substantiate or cared to closely study. The fact of the matter is that Prabhupada's discourse can contribute to a damaged reputation to those inside and outside devotional struggles and aberrations for the followers. Such teachings lead to unintended consequences.
Okay, well, the fact of the matter is that Prabhupada's discourse can contribute to a damaged reputation to those on the inside, on the outside.
But let's get into the unintended consequences. Dangerous misdirecting of practitioners in their lives of bhakti, fanaticisms and fundamentalisms, a misuse of ecclesiastical power and a perversion of leadership, the development of acutely judgmental society, a widespread culture of depersonalization, an increase in ethical transgressive behaviors, and so on. I mean, really, he's attributing all of this to Prabhupada's teachings. I mean, do you ever think he would say something like this to Prabhupada's face? I mean, really, that a disciple will say something like this, that, oh, Guru Maharaj, I think that your teachings can contribute to all these things. I mean, this is really offensive.
Okay, so...
This is it's a fact of the matter. Prabhupada's discourse can contribute to, it's the top of this paragraph, can contribute to a damaged reputation. This is what he's saying about his Guru Maharaj's teachings, that his teachings are damaging the reputation of Vaishnavism.
No, he didn't say that. He said that they can contribute to a damaged reputation. He didn't say that they are damaging or that they do. He said that they can contribute to a damaged reputation.
Okay, so he's being diplomatic, but I mean, what he's saying is not exactly glorifying Prabhupada's teachings. I mean, it's pretty heavy, in my opinion.
Well, it is whatever it is, right? But then the fact of the matter is what he's saying accurate or not?
No, it's not. Prabhupada's ISKCON was not like this. This was when Prabhupada left and various leaders, of all kinds of people, they took over, and these kind of things happened. Did these things happen while Prabhupada was there? Not so much. It's based on leadership. You can't blame it on Prabhupada's teachings. But
he doesn't blame it on Prabhupada's teachings.
The fact of the matter, these discourses.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is that Prabhupada's discourse
can contribute.
And saying there's a connection between Prabhupada's teachings and all these faults here.
Well, here's something for you. Here's a radical idea. Would New Vrindavan or the Gurukul exist if it weren't for Prabhupada's teachings? Would they exist at all? Would ISKCON exist at all?
No, it wouldn't.
No. So, you know,
Well, he's not
it's
saying
like,
that. You're saying that.
no, what I'm saying is that even for there to be a reputation to be damaged is a product of Prabhupada's teachings. Now,
True.
it may be that people misunderstand them and misapply them, but they're misunderstanding and misapplying Srila Prabhupada's teachings because of the preaching of the institution that Srila Prabhupada created. So ultimately, you know, that has contributed to that.
No,
And that's not
if devotees want to misinterpret Prabhupada's teachings and do all kinds of nonsense in his name,
Boom.
blame-
There you have it right there.
You got the answer.
You just made the
blame
point.
the
So
teachings.
yeah,
You can't blame Prabhupada.
here's the answer. Yeah, you gave the answer here. Srila Prabhupada was on the point sharp. Like I was giving to example, I think to Garuda does in the podcast. Srila Prabhupada, you know, example, our parents even said, hey, do not touch the fire because you're gonna burn yourself. And we kids are like, oh, we go and we experiment and we burn ourselves. And what Srila Prabhupada used to say when do not do this, the material world is like this, the three, what do you call it, three modes of material nature. It will lead you to this, it will lead you to that. Don't do this or don't do that. He was instructing very carefully. And if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Now, don't be stupid. I'm explaining to you everything. You got the God-given intelligence and giving you all of those instructions for you to follow. And guess what people do? Oh, Srila Prabhupada is aggressive and this and that. You know, it's the creation of people, but not Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was on the point.
I can give an example here.
Okay.
I go on. Okay. So he's saying that such teachings may lead to unintended consequences, dangerous misdirecting, fanaticisms. This is my favorite one. Have you heard, Prabhu, Radha Ramana Prabhu, have you heard of The Final Order?
Yeah.
The book,
It's
you know, the Ritvik thing? Yeah.
Thing.
And yeah, there's actually another book called The Final Order, which I wrote, which has Prabhupada's actual final order, which is in a conversation, Srila Prabhupada said, eat the spiritual master, which is Prabhupada's ultimate instruction. Yeah. Because they were having a conversation. Eat the spiritual master. You can Google it in the database. The instruction is there. It's very clear. The reason why ISKCON is failing is because that instruction has not been followed. And it's just clear as day he gave it. They're talking. Someone said, oh, Prabhupada, you know, they say that the cow is in the mode of goodness, so therefore to eat the cow is in the mode of goodness. And then Srila Prabhupada gave a very clear instruction. He said, well, the spiritual master is transcendental, so eat the spiritual master.
What does that mean exactly?
Exactly.
That means that if you're an idiot and you take that and run with it and say, Prabhupada said eat the spiritual master, it's not Prabhupada's fault. Like, it's an unintended consequence. He was making a joke, you know?
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, fair enough.
And you know, like, that's how I read this here. I don't think he's saying that Prabhupada was like, you know, he's like, hey, you know, these things can happen. And his whole paper is, how do we deal with that?
No, but he's saying, first of all, his title is Careless Vairagya. Like Prabhupada was just so renounced. He just didn't care what he was saying. Therefore, he was just saying nonsense things. And therefore,
hang on. Let's see how he defines Careless Vairagya,
he's
right?
definitely attributing a relationship between Prabhupada's teachings and all these things going on. Otherwise, he's not talking about, he's talking about Prabhupada and he's talking about Prabhupada's teaching. He's not talking about what people did with the teachings.
Well, is he? I mean, you've got to do it using his words
he's
from the
calling
paper.
Prabhupada a careless Vairagi, is he not? Is he not calling him that? So he's talking about Prabhupada. And he's saying, because of his careless teachings, we have these different things here.
But what do those words mean in this paper? What is indicated by the term careless vairagya?
Yeah, he's saying that Prabhupada was so renounced that, you know, he didn't really, you know, it wasn't a big deal for him if people, if what he said was supported and this and that. And, you know, he was just so renounced. He was like,
he was careless in
he was
two
like
respects.
a Jada Bharat or something. Yeah, he didn't care about the fleeting and temporary world, so he just talked nonsense.
No, it doesn't say that he talked nonsense. I can give you an example. Someone
it
said
says
to him,
indirectly, because from nonsense you get nonsense activities.
no,
like
don't
the
tell
whole
me it
list
says
of-
indirectly. No. You
I
interpret.
just showed you the verse where he said that. I just
Where he
read it
said
to
what?
you. What he said. He listed a whole list of things which he said are unintended consequences of Prabhupada's careless teachings.
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah, he's putting a relationship. There's no accident that those two things are in the same paragraph. He's definitely saying there is a relationship between all those
two things?
unintended consequences and Prabhupada's teachings. You can't
There are
argue that.
unintended consequences. The
Yeah,
Gurukul
and they are
abuse is an
related to
unintended
Prabhupada's
consequence.
careless teachings.
No, where
Because
he doesn't say
Prabhupada is
careless
this careless
teachings.
Vairagya who doesn't care if people don't.
He doesn't say careless teachings.
Can we refer to which page and where is the sentence, because we're gonna jump from here and there and it's like,
Okay, but let's move on. We're running out of time.
Can we
But one thing I want to do is, like, if you want to make the case that Garuda says this, it has to be what Garuda said. Like, you can't be careless in your speaking. I know you did, but then you said you did, but yeah, but listen to me carefully here. Then you said he said careless teachings. Where is careless teachings in this paper?
That's
the term
the
that you use. That
a careless Vairagi is someone who is so renounced, and therefore he's not too worried about if what he says it makes sense or whatever. Like that's the point.
That is not. Where does it say that in the paper? No, where does it say that?
I want to read that.
Yeah, where does it say that?
Well, what is the point of this paragraph? Why don't you summarize this paragraph? And what is he saying here?
This paragraph, the fact of the matter, that one? This paragraph is the fact of the matter.
Why is he, what's the title? The careless Vairagya. Why is he saying this? What is if you're saying that my interpretation is not correct, what's your interpretation? What's the point
I'm not saying that your interpretation is incorrect. I'm saying it's an interpretation.
Yeah, so what's your interpretation? What is your view of it? Why is he saying a careless Vairagya? What is the point of this paragraph?
Well, he says he doesn't say careless Vairagya. First of all, he does not say careless Vairagya. He's talking about Vairagya carelessness. It's not careless Vairagya. It's Vairagya carelessness.
What's the point he's making in this paragraph?
In this section?
Nice.
Yeah. So he says here, Prabhupada exhibits what I would call a sort of Vairagya carelessness. Vairagya means dispassionate renunciation, especially the kind more intensively pursued by Vaishnava sannyasis or renunciates. Prabhupada was, and in quotes, careless in two respects. One, Prabhupada quite literally just cared less about the fleeting temporal world in which souls become too entangled. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can give an example to support that. One time when Prabhupada was giving a lecture and he said the spiritual master knows everything, someone asked him, well, how many windows are there in the Empire State Building? And Srila Prabhupada just in a flash answered him and said, as many as there are drops of water in illusion. He's like, who cares how many windows there are in the Empire State Building?
The first one is not the important one. He gives two things. He gives two things. Okay, he said Prabhupada was careless in two respects. So the first respect is not important. The two is the lack of care regarding external everyday world, resulting in making careless statements and assertions about worldly subject matters that he never bothered to substantiate or cared to closely study. Okay, so that's what I said. He's saying that Prabhupada talked nonsense because he just didn't bother to study.
No, he did not say that Prabhupada talked nonsense.
That we're
you
not,
said that.
And he didn't care. This is straight from Garuda. I'm quoting directly.
No, it's not. Garuda did not say that Prabhupada is speaking nonsense. Radha Ramana said that.
Yes.
Radha Ramana said that.
Okay, so what does voicing flippant assertion means? Because I don't know. I can look up flippant in as a synonym. I'm pretty sure nonsense would be a pretty close synonym to flippant. So I'm sorry, I'm not exactly quoting what he's saying, but flippant and nonsense.
Well, it's very good that you are sorry that you're doing that, because that is your defect.
Yeah, okay,
It's like,
so
if
he's saying
you
he's
want to go
voicing
after it,
different assertions. They were, and whether they're based on solid information or even on ridiculous sources, it didn't matter to him because he was just careless. This is what he's saying. I'm reading it directly. I'm not even putting one of my own words in there. Heaven forbid.
so here's the dictionary definition of flippant. It says marked by disrespectful levity or casualness. Talkative, voluble, probably not. Of smooth, fluent, and rapid speech. No, it wouldn't be that one. So it would be this first one. But let's have a look at the Oxford Dictionary.
Anyway, we know he's
Don't
not
you?
glorifying teachings. You know, we don't need to nitpick on the exact meaning. It's obviously not, he's not speaking them in a nice way.
That's not what this paper is for. This paper is for distinguishing something. It's not meant for Kanishtas.
Okay,
The defect of the paper is it should have made that clear at the beginning.
Well, I think you mentioned that to you, like
Here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is. So according to
Kanishta like me, I can't understand this paper because it's just beyond me. How someone could talk such nonsense.
here's
So
the
let's move on because we haven't really got to the real juice here.
Here's what the Oxford Dictionary says.
Actually, that's already juicy, bro.
Yeah, I know. It's great.
But it gets juicier.
Here it is. Listen to this. Flippant, Oxford Dictionary, showing that you do not take something as seriously as other people think you should. Srila Prabhupada goes like this. He goes, of course, the moon is further away than the sun. That's why Monday comes after Sunday. It's like, everybody's like, dude, that's why Monday comes after Sunday? He's like, boom, proved it right there.
Those things are not important. What is important are these basic things of culture that our devotees really have a problem with. You know, these ideas that there's a hierarchy in culture, that these basic cultural things is what devotees have a problem. Whether the moon is further than the sun, that's not affecting anyone's life in any practical way. But
Yes,
these basic statements that devotees have an issue with, misogyny, this, that, this kind of bigotry type thing. This is what devotees have an issue with. And that's what's important, you know.
Okay, can we go back?
So back to when the master speaks. Let's move on to the next one. I still haven't heard the killer. I haven't heard the killer argument yet.
Yeah. Okay. So now heading 6, the Gita is embedded hermetic. So this is fine. Essence is bhakti. He's talking about. He says something in private. Prabhupada bended the rules. I don't know what rules he's referring to. That Prabhupada bended.
Where's this?
That's fine. So we can move on to now heading 7.
Did you just say that he said that Prabhupada bent the rules somewhere?
Hello.
Oh, he's lost his connection, but that's okay. Let's just find this bent the rules. Okay, the bent the rules. It came to these. However, in many of his nearly 7,000 personal letters to disciples, he exercised enormous compassion, often customizing the lived practices within bhakti for his disciples. From all appearances, one might say that Prabhupada one might say anything. You can put anything in there.
Yeah.
Even bent the rules in many cases. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
He's just doing it like an observation there. Like one might say, you know.
Yeah.
Like you might interpret it that way. You might see it that way.
Uh-huh. And there are examples you can give that where I would be like, yeah, that was bending the rule.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases. It would be good actually if these kind of things were supported with
examples.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
examples. But when doing so, Prabhupada always emphasized direction toward and connection to the highest teaching. Let me just message Prabhu and see your internet working? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's summarize this first part. Like, what we should do when Prabhu comes back is to check to see whether, up to this point, is there anything which is the smoking gun for blaspheming Srila Prabhupada? I get the feeling that it's kind of like this vairagya carelessness, you know, like it's like the idea of that seems to be disturbing.
Yeah, of course it can be disturbing when Srila Prabhupada say, you know, like you materialists, you rascals, and you this, you that. If a person that is not a devotee and that hasn't read much and done that and has the instructions or guidance of a more advanced devotee, they will freak out. They will feel so insulted. And I gave an example when Garuda does, like when I read this example, like women are less intelligent, and my mind just went flip the other side.
Yeah.
And then when I read that, I was like, yeah, I can say, you know, Srila Prabhupada was, you know, straight to the point, sharp. And that is true. And I gave an example why, in what way women can be unintelligent.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're unintelligent? No, that person is not unintelligent because the soul is full of intelligence, like Krishna. However, yes. However, their material baggage brings all of this emotional baggage, or, you know, intelligence levels, whatever, in whatever level. So there is two conflicted things. As a soul, you are pure, intelligent, you're part of parcel of Krishna, but your material entanglement, you carry in this baggage. And you show these emotions in different ways.
Yeah, but that's not what I mean when I say that. What I mean is that devotees, and, you know, like Radha Ramana Prabhu and others, when they read this Vairagya carelessness, they're like, this is offensive to Srila Prabhupada to say this.
Mm-hmm. It can't read like that.
And it was, well, it's the second part here that he said was the Vairagya carelessness, he cared less about the fleeting temporal world. Well, you know, that's kind of like, in a qualified sense, it would need to be, I would be like, you know, I gave the example of the Empire State Building, right? You know, how many windows there are, and he answered by saying as many as there are drops of water in the ocean.
It's like, who cares about it? It's like, do I care how many windows is there? Like, do you think I have the time to care about it?
Well,
like,
but here's a point about this that I would make about this is you could interpret that to mean, well, he doesn't care about, like, for example, establishing Varnashram Dharma. Or, no, don't bother about getting the farms or anything, just live in the city because we don't care about the... No, Prabhupada really did. There were some aspects of what we would call the material world that he did really care about. So that one there needs to be understood. It is itself vulnerable to the misinterpretation.
For sure.
Yeah, but it was the second one here that Prabhu was saying is the one that he has the real issue with. Making careless statements and assertions about worldly subject matters that he never bothered to substantiate or cared to closely study. There was one thing which he was using it to support something, and then it turned out to be discredited or something, and so he stopped using it. I actually understand this. It's in the sense of, like, pretty much anything that agrees with the conclusion is like, sure, we'll use that. You know, it's like, of course you have to be careful about, but, you know, it's kind of like this. If you know what the answer is, if you know that the answer is women are less intelligent than men, because that's what the book says, anything that comes along that supports that, you're just like, sure, you know, and you'll use it, even if it later gets discredited or whatever. You're like, big deal.
Yeah. I don't know how they find it offensive, but I guess they have to take their time, and somehow they will come to this realization. For me, it's quite easy to read. This lack of care regarding the external everyday world resulted in making careless statements and assertions about worldly subjects, blah, 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 blah. Whether they're based on solid information or even ridiculous sources, it really didn't matter to him. What did matter to Prabhupada was the ultimate and permanent valuable focus on the spiritual. And that is true. He was hammering every single day. Do not care about this material.
Back.
You know, do not.
You back.
Yay. We were just touching. We were talking about second part where I was saying, you know, this one can be understood like that. Like, Srila Prabhupada didn't care about material matter.
Oh, we're still on careless Vairagya, is it?
We've gone back to that because I was asking the question and we were examining it. We wanted to ask you this when you came back. Up to this point here where we are now, have we encountered the smoking gun of one of your three claims that it's... No, not yet.
Smoking gun is at the end.
Okay. Okay, good. Let's keep going.
Okay, sounds exciting.
Yeah. So
So I was talking about. Where did I cut off?
we went to
paragraph
past bending the
is
rules,
Bending
the
the
and
three
then here
rules.
levels
we're
of
into
Bhakti teachings. Did I
the
cut off?
utilizing the tripartite heuristic models.
No, is that where I cut off? Okay. So let's just
That's where we
skip
cut
down
off.
here
Okay.
to the 3 levels of Bhakti teachings. That's on the PDF. It's like page 20, 25
20.
or
Ooh, okay, like way down. So past.
98 as is written on the papers. 98.
Okay.
Isha.
Because we're running out of time here. Okay. Are you with
Yeah,
me?
you gotta get to work. 12 principles of Bhakti theology. 25. I'm just gonna punch in 25 into the thing here and see what happens. Oh, we're there. Boom.
Okay. So you scroll down a bit to 27. He gives 3 teachings. He says there are essential teachings, supportive teachings, supplemental teachings.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So essential, as he's already gone, we skipped those paragraphs, but he talks about a lot about love of God, essential teachings of bhakti and all that. So those are
Savadamam Prityaja, Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Yep.
Yeah, so those are the essential teachings. Then we have supportive teachings, Varnashram, basically.
Yep.
Okay, and then he goes to supplemental teachings. So these are factors such as socio-cultural, historical, and circumstantial. And he talks about that these teachings can emerge from the perspectives of the individual teacher. And he says that these teachings are relatively less important, and if the practitioners find them to be distracting or detracting from their essential focus, then they can simply be put aside and disengaged. So
Yep.
as soon as you mention the word socio-cultural, that can be so many things. I mean, Varnashram is culture, so he's kind of jumping between the two of them. A lot of these things of how a proper society functions, what people have issue with, and they consider them to be distracting and detracting from the essence. And how would you judge? I guess to him, he's saying you have to judge from your Chaitya Guru what feels right or what feels wrong or whatever. And
by this stage, we have gone through the 3 levels of the Bhakti, the student. Like, as you say, it needs to be understood in a particular way. And how do you apply this? But that's the realm of the Majjhima Adhikari and the Uttama Adhikari, right? The Kanishta Adhikari is just like, it doesn't want to think about this kind of stuff. He just wants to know,
yes.
Put on the dhoti. Now I'm Krishna conscious.
Yeah, it's up to the Uttama to adjust things, and that's what Prabhupada did.
Yeah.
So we have to accept his adjustment, his version, not that we apply our own feeling of what is right and wrong, which is exactly Garuda's idea.
What do you mean by we? When you say we, who is speaking? An Uttama?
We as the practitioner. We as the practitioner, as the neophyte.
Okay, so the neophyte practitioners.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah, that makes more clear. Yeah.
And then this term socio-cultural that he uses, in terms of Krishna consciousness, we don't accept the postmodern view that you have your culture and I have my culture and it's all good and everything is, one is as true as the other. For us, culture is an absolute term. There's Krishna's culture, and whatever is not Krishna culture, that is a lack of culture.
Sure, but like
standing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, for example, translating the Bhagavad Gita as it is into other languages, or using local tunes to sing the Mahamantra.
Well, that's culture in terms of arts and all that. But I mean, I'm talking about culture in terms of how a cultured person acts, how to be a gentleman, this kind of culture. I mean, this is the real meaning of culture.
Yep.
And here's a quote from Prabhupada: "No culture, they should adopt real culture." What do they know about culture? They're killing their own children in the womb and they're cultured. Worse than animals. Animals do not do that. These rascals, they're cultured, so wretched and fallen, they claim to be cultured. And he quotes this verse from Chanakya Pandit: "A cultured person sees every woman except for his own wife as mother, that whatever is not yours, you see it as dirt on the street, etc. This is what is a cultured person. This is culture,
Yeah.
not this postmodern relative idea. Oh, Prabhupada's got his Indian culture and we've got our Western culture, so we'll just, based on what feels right, we'll take and what we like and reject what we don't like."
Well, I can give an example against that. Not against that, but to demonstrate some of the complexity of it. In the beginning, Srila Prabhupada was like, and the books are very clear about polygamy. And at Gita Nagari, I believe, or New Vrindavan, in discussing, I think Gita Nagari, when the devotees said to Srila Prabhupada, his disciples said, but it's illegal in this country, Srila Prabhupada said, well, you just marry one legally and the others you just say is your friend to the government. But then later, Srila Prabhupada said no, because he could see that, hey, these guys are not pulling it off. So that's like, I don't know.
Well, polygamy is a whole other topic, because that conversation you're referring to, in that conversation, Satsarup is there and another devotee is asking the question. And Satsarup actually refers to the letter that Prabhupada wrote to the GBC saying, that polygamy should be banned and all this. Satsarup refers to that letter. So you're getting your timeline wrong there, because the letter where Prabhupada bans polygamy was written before this conversation. And Satsarup refers to the letter in the conversation. And then Prabhupada is like, don't call it marriage then. Just call it, having a girlfriend is not illegal. So, that can be a whole different topic. So we don't want to get too much into that.
But I mean, to point out here is though that this is an example of like, would it not be socio-cultural considerations as a supplemental teaching? Like polygamy is not an essential component of Krishna consciousness. Like, it's not like if we don't have polygamy, we don't have culture. I mean,
no, well, it's a part of Varn Ashram, and there's culture, which is the foundation. I mean, when people talk about, you get this kind of Sahajya mood, like, oh, we're just going to go straight to the top floor of, oh, we're all on pure transcendental bhakti and this, that. But if you're not a cultured person, how can you talk about bhakti first if you're not first cultured? And culture is Varn Ashram. That's actually the foundation. Unless you're first a cultured person, how can then you start talking about love of God and all that? I mean, if you don't even, if you don't have basic gender roles even, that's like, wow, gender role. That's like basic culture. People not even there. And they're talking about love of God. It's just Sahajya nonsense.
Okay,
they don't even have a basic understanding. What is a man? What is a woman? What they should do. The basic gender roles are not there. And yet they're talking about love of God. This is like Sahajya.
Yeah, for sure,
you have to be a cultured person before you can be a transcendental person.
Yeah, that is the ideal. In the ideal world, the ideal person gets to the ideal world and does the ideal things, like is in the Varn
Ashram is for accommodating the non-ideal people. Is for dovetailing the ideal idea.
Hold on a second. Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, so Varna Ashram is ideal place for one to develop oneself. That's right. And we should be promoting that. However, as you were saying, people just want to jump from one floor to another one and just consider themselves so elevated. And that is the problem. Because Srila Prabhupada is talking at the topmost culture, where that culture and how in that culture they behave, they act, because they are the highest standard. But we are in the Kali Yuga, and because as human beings, we just pretend and we create so many speculation and concoctions, and we have our own interpretations of things. We're thinking that it's okay to have polygamy. Hey, guys cannot even handle one woman. How are they going to handle 20 or 2 or 3?
Mm-hmm.
And in old times, they used to have
and in the
30
future,
women or 50 women or 100.
also in the
It
future.
was allowed because they were highly cultured and elevated gentlemen or souls. But in Kali Yuga, people are misinterpreting that it's like, okay, I can have a polygamy. Hey, they cannot even hold themselves together.
There's no real
Yeah.
polygamy in ISKCON, so I don't know that it's really a topic. But there is
Well, no,
there's a purport where Prabhupada says that societies that enforce monogamy are demoniac.
No, he doesn't say that.
Right now in Kali Yuga, Prabhu.
No, hang on a second.
We're getting off the point here. We're getting off the point.
But
No,
just,
we do.
just on that point, it's in Bhagavatam 4, the 4th canto. He says a society that enforces polygamy, it prohibits polygamy, but allows women hunting is demoniac.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So
But
he's calling
where's the
that,
smoking?
I don't know. If ISKCON is prohibiting polygamy, what does that make them? What kind of society is that?
Yeah, but Prabhu, you must consider this. In Kali Yuga, you cannot sustain one woman. They marry one, and then behind they just like dumping them, and then with children. They cannot sustain that. Why
Yeah.
is the point?
So it's on a
What is
person
the
by
point
person
for
basis.
now to encourage or to even talk about guys to be thinking about polygamy? They cannot
Right.
handle. They cannot
Love
even
it.
clean themselves.
In other words, if you can, then you can, and if you can't, then you can't.
Yeah,
It's that simple.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But you know what? In Kali Yuga, hardly anyone will be
No.
mastering their senses. Sorry.
In the Kali Yuga, over the next decades, and as this goes on, it's going to go back to the golden age of the Varnashram.
In the golden age may happen, but right now, I'm sorry.
Anyway, don't worry, honey. I'm not
Anyway.
looking to get another wife. Okay.
I'm not saying. I'm just talking to this topic.
Yeah.
We
of course.
cannot
Of
encourage
course.
polygamy in
Just
Kali
generally,
Yuga.
I agree.
In general,
Yes.
No, it's
However-
not encouraged. What Ram did not encourage it, but it's not illegal either. You know?
hold on a
It's not-
second.
It's the
Like in the
lowest
scriptures
standard.
where? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm doing two things. I disagree with the idea in the current time, but I agree. If a man was able to sustain 30, 50 women, and is a gentleman, has the money, has the riches, has the intelligence, why not? I will be married to that man.
Yeah.
Hey, guess
What?
what? I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
Don't get too hot. However, in Kali Yuga, it is just like giving a child a knife.
Yeah. Okay. So, but where's we're gonna have to do a whole episode on that. So,
Yeah.
But
get
where's the smoking gun? Where's the
Okay,
smoking
let's
gun?
move on. Let's move on. We haven't got to the
Yeah.
real, the transcendental diamonds that Garuda Pro is delivering to the world. Okay.
Yeah, we want to see the chakra manifest and slice his head off.
Okay, so now in this is his kind of real conclusion here. So he talks about, he again states his first thing that he goes into this long thing of the apparent defects in Prabhupada's teachings. He says it may be even painful for many followers to hear Prabhupada's view. For example, on relationships between men and women and their sexuality, and he goes on a long list there.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, it's no doubt. Yeah, some people find that
So
hard.
he talks about, that he can all too easily make statements that are culturally biased, colonialist influenced, because of course he is born in British colonial India, so his statements are colonially influenced, unfounded,
Where is this?
politically. It's the second paragraph under delivering transcendental diamonds. Despite the sacred otherworldly quality to Prabhupada's teachings, non-followers, so many of his statements are too easily appear as rather culturally biased. Again, he's putting in this idea of all culture is relative, and Prabhupada has his culture.
This is a fact, Prabhu.
Colonialist
People, people think that. People think that. They do.
Okay.
I thought like that too.
Okay.
I thought like that. But guess what? The more deeper I go, the more I understand exactly where he's coming from. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what
people
Garuda
think-
is saying is that people do think that, and it's just an objective fact. People do think that.
Yeah, because Prabhupada is not preaching their culture, he's preaching Vedic culture, but it's not biased. He is preaching Krishna's culture.
Yeah, but
So
he's not saying that it is.
Biased, he's preaching the truth.
Yeah, sure, but do people?
Not a cultural bias. He's not conditioned by his Indian
Let me ask
culture.
you this question:
Do
Do some people think when they encounter Srila Prabhupada that he's like culturally biased and colonialist influenced? Do some people think that?
Yeah, they can think all kinds of things about him.
Exactly.
And that's what he's saying,
Anyone who's
Prabhu.
not a devotee are going to come with all kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying
Okay.
that.
He's not saying
Yeah.
that that's a fact.
But he's
He's
saying
just
that,
saying that
all
some
too
people think that.
easily. Too easily, why? So Prabhupada too easily made them appear that way.
No, he doesn't say he made them. He just says that many of his statements all too easily appear as etc. etc.
Appears
Yeah.
as rather
So who
culturally
made them
biased
too
for him.
easily appear that way? Who made them too easily appear that way?
Krishna.
Prabhupada.
He's the ultimate cause. Sarva Karana Karanam.
Okay, well, you can say that about anything, but here we're talking about Prabhupada. He's
Yeah.
saying Prabhupada made his things all too easily appear that way.
He doesn't say that, Prabhu. Where are the words on the page that
Yes.
say that?
So many
So
of his
many of his
statements all
statements
too
all
easily
too
appear. If I
easily
tell you
appear.
that your statements now all too easily appear like X, Y, and Z, am I not finding fault with your statements?
No, because there's another thing is like, for example, there are people who are going to watch this and they're going to be like, Sitapati is the man. There are going to be other people who watch this and go, who does this guy Sitapati think he is, man? What a blowhard. This guy's blowing his own trumpet. He's like cocky. It's like I all too easily appear as cocky to some people, but to other people I appear awesome. They love it.
Yeah,
Like
so
he's
if I'm giving you some
he's
feedback
challenging.
on what you've said, and I tell you that your statements all too easily appear like X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
Am I
but
not
to
giving you
a
some
particular
negative
audience.
feedback?
He didn't say to
Some-
everyone.
Okay,
doesn't say to
anyway,
everyone.
Let's
But
move on.
the word here is appear. It's a
Okay,
objective
well,
one. Appear.
Okay.
Subjective.
Subject,
Okay.
appear rather than just objective. Yeah.
So now let's move on next sentence. What to speak of statements that sound patently misogynistic, homophobic, and racist?
Yes. And there's nothing wrong with it. Reality is racist. Anyway, sorry. See, if I say that, dude, I'll be entering the culture wars. People will be like, cancel this guy. Some people are like, Prabhupada, they said Prabhupada's statements are sexist. And I'm like, yeah, they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. Reality is sexist. But, people are not going to swallow that. And I recognize that, but sure.
Yeah. Well, it depends your
But
definition
everyone
of sexist. That's what I was talking about initially, is that, you can't attribute these words to Prabhupada. You have to look at the Shastric definition of what is sexist, what is misogynistic, because there is such a thing, and Prabhupada is not doing those things.
No, he's not misogynistic at all.
He
100%
is
not.
given he is given like, well, for me as a person that work with other people, I have to give my perspective. These things are done this way because this way. So here is conveying that message. He said this there, he's bold and this, he said these words. To some people may appear so easily to be like this.
Okay.
He is just giving an example how people can take all of his statements can be misogynistic, homophobic.
Yes,
because
he's repeating his first problem statement.
It's not a statement about Prabhupada.
How he resolves
it's a statement
this problem.
It's a statement about the degraded audience. Is what it is.
Okay, well, let's see how he resolves the problem. Okay, let's just continue reading. He says, such non-followers often wonder how his Western disciples can even accept, much less appreciate such statements.
Yeah.
Now he talks about followers can fall into a kind of cognitive dissonance. So he gives two ways in which his disciples deal with all these painful statements that Prabhupada makes. So one is that some disciples have claimed that Prabhupada, like any ordinary person, is capable of mistakes and misjudgments.
This is not just to what you said there. You said these painful statements that Srila Prabhupada makes. That's a Radha Ramana Das Uvacha. That's not Garuda Das.
No, it is. It's later down here.
later down. So
Okay,
let's
yeah.
wait till we
It's
get
in
to it.
this.
Sure.
It's in this paragraph actually. But let's read the paragraph. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, okay. So while Prabhupada, as the first in history to successfully spread Krishna conscious Krishna bhakti outside of India to the rest of the world, appears to easily and effectively teach, he can also appear to present myopic statements coming from very conditioned circumstances. These extremes are incongruent given that Prabhupada teaches his followers that a divinely inspired pure devotee cannot be a conditioned soul. So, so to him it seems incongruent that how
No,
can
no,
a
he
pure
doesn't say that. He doesn't say that.
can appear.
Yeah, he says it, and it does, Prabhu. There are some people who are like, this part of Prabhupada, yes, but not the other part. There are some people
Yeah,
who like
because
that
they
a
have
lot,
their
actually.
preconceived idea of what is a pure devotee. A pure devotee is on the platform of pure wokeness, and he does not say anything that contradicts their misunderstanding of the world.
Well, they may have that, or they may just be like, it's a bit much for me to swallow that they didn't go to the moon. They could be like that. I know a lot of devotees like that.
Okay, so
And if you
let's
tell them
move
they haven't
on
been,
to his next. Let's move on to his next sentence.
Okay.
Today
So
is 54.
now you're
No,
saying, and
there's-
yet it's hard, maybe even painful, for many followers to hear Prabhupada's views. For example, on relationships between men and women, their sexuality, on women being less intelligent than men, on the inferiority of some races. So here's the painful thing. That's not my thing. He's terming Prabhupada's teachings that many of his followers describe his teachings as being painful.
He doesn't
then
say
he's-
that. He just said it is hard, maybe even painful for many followers. I mean,
maybe even, yeah, maybe.
yeah,
That's the
I mean,
word.
yeah,
Maybe.
there's people who experience that, definitely.
Okay, so now
not
he's
one of
talking.
them.
What are these painful views? He's talking about relationships between men and women and their sexuality. So what is he talking about? The 4 regs here, illicit sex. Is that one of the supplemental teachings that can be?
Listen,
No, we just need to read as it is.
we just had an example right here. If we start talking about that polygamy verses and stuff in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Bhagavatam, our wives will start to freak out, man. It's like,
Not me.
Okay, we don't know what he's talking about here, but there also been devotees that thought, oh, illicit sex, what is this once a month? It's impossible, and we don't know what he's talking about here. Because after all, we have to judge from what feels right. So, what feels right is the ultimate judge. That's what he said earlier. Okay. So now, consequently, so now it goes into how devotees deal with these painful statements of Prabhupada.
yeah.
Okay. Consequently, some disciples have claimed that Prabhupada, like any ordinary person, is capable of mistakes and misjudgments.
Yep.
Okay, so that's his first option. That Prabhupada, they just see Prabhupada as an ordinary guy who makes mistakes.
No.
It doesn't say
Some disciples have claimed that Prabhupada, like any ordinary person, is capable of mistakes and judgment.
misjudgments.
Misjudgments.
Yeah.
Some
Some
disciples.
are basically offensive to Prabhupada and they see him as an ordinary guy.
Well, no, it doesn't say that. It actually doesn't say that. It says that, like an ordinary person, he's capable of mistakes and misjudgments.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
the
he's an ordinary
president of
person.
no, it doesn't say that. The president of the United States is not an ordinary person, and yet you could say that, well, like an ordinary person, he's capable of mistakes and misjudgments. It says like an ordinary person, which means not that they're saying he is
He's
an
not
ordinary
quite
person.
an ordinary
And he
person,
didn't.
but still he has
Yeah, but the thing here,
ordinariness.
Prabhu, here you have to understand. It's not he's saying that. He is just bringing out the examples of
at this point he's
disciples.
not saying. Yeah, he's not saying at this point. I accept that. He's just saying how different devotees deal with this issue. Okay.
Yes.
So then the second one, others who remain faithful to the scriptural view, a pure devotee. I don't know why he puts that in inverted commas. Like if I say a pure devotee, Sitalatma das, Sitapati Guru, I say a pure devotee, it sounds kind of like you're being sarcastic. So I don't know if he's trying to be sarcastic here. such as
Well,
Prabhupada.
no, it just has quotes, that's all.
Others remain
Yeah.
faithful to the scriptures.
Like
the
I could
scriptural
put
view.
it in quotes. Vaishnava Voices, the #1 podcast in the world. What does that mean?
That's the tagline.
Yeah,
It
but
means
when you
it's the
do this,
tagline.
you put it in quotes, you kind of, it's implying some sarcasm there.
Maybe.
Maybe, we don't know. But I don't
yeah.
see the necessary of putting it in quotes there. To me, you could construe as being sarcastic here. Okay, such as Prabhupada is one who cannot be thought of as someone who makes mistakes like ordinary conditioned souls.
That's you.
And then
in
he
that
gives a
category.
third option. The people who have a cognitive dissonance. You know, they try to accept both positions. He's a pure devotee, and at the same time, he's an ordinary guy who makes mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. So some people have to deal with that. That's like they can't figure it out, right? They're like, if I say he makes mistakes, Radha Ramana will come after me, but I can't see how this could be the thing, and I have to believe this, but I don't. And man, people, they get messed up.
Okay, so now he gives his solution. Okay, that in his own teachings, Prabhupada gives us the various means for understanding how to view the spiritual master's words. He makes it very clear that one should first appreciate the spiritual master's primary focus in life and mission, and not focus on imperfect things. And then he quotes from Nectar of Instruction: "No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee, even if there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Lord." And now he gives his own interpretation of this. So he says, these words provide a general principle. Even if there are defects in the spiritual bodies, in the spiritual master's body, and then including the mind, so that's very important here, they should not be criticized. This does not mean they should not be recognized as defects, but the bhakta does not judge or limit the potency of the spiritual master on the basis of these bodily defects, which include defects in his mind.
Okay,
and
so
perhaps this could be applied to defective ideas which inevitably arise due to the pure master's sacrifice for coming into this world.
Before we go into this part dramatically, this general principle that he's derived from that statement, like that general principle to me seems valid. Like that seems like a valid understanding of that statement.
No, it's not. First of all, including the mind is totally his own concoction.
No, the body does include the mind. It's Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter.
Let me read the actual text of Nectar of Instruction, text 6.
Do it.
Okay, so translation. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Okay, indeed, one should overlook a devotee having a body born of a low family, a body of bad complexion, a deformed body, a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the water of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season is full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water does not become polluted. Those who advance in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So it goes quite elaborately in what kind of defects it's talking about, and it's talking about the gross body. There's no mention of, and he might be a little bit in Tamagun here and a little bit of Rajagun there, and he might be a bit stupid.
No,
it all talks about the gross body. It gives 5 examples here: the low family, bad complexion, different family, disease. It's all about.
This is basic Bhagavad Gita. This is basic Bhagavad Gita. 15:9. Shrocham chakshya sparshanam cha rasanam granam eva cha adishtayam manaschayam vishayanupasevate. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. The mind is part of the body.
Yes,
the body includes the mind.
I'm not denying that, but how how do we interpret this verse here? The verse is giving a lot of instances of what it's talking about here. It's not talking about the mind. The mind of the pure devotee is Sudasattva. That is his mind. He doesn't have defects in his mind. That's why you don't become a pure devotee and being a little bit in Rajagun, a little bit of anartha here and anartha there. That's not a pure devotee. A pure devotee has a pure mind. So this thing of having has defects in his mind, that's offensive.
No. Okay, Prabhu, what about this? What about this? Find any Srila Prabhupada's servant diary and find an example of Srila Prabhupada mistaking one thing for another thing, vipralipsa. Like someone can see him and then Srila Prabhupada, does something and mistakes one thing for another. And then what are you going to say about that?
Yeah, but we're talking about his teachings. I mean, the whole thing is about Prabhupada's teachings and that Prabhupada put mistakes in his teachings. There's one thing that's not maybe he forgot where he left his glasses. Oh, look, I found in Prabhupada's pastors, he forgot where he's left his glasses. So therefore we can see defects in his teachings that come from his mind.
No, Prabhu, don't jump ahead like that. Just get this first point.
That's where you're saying
2 points here. Don't say things I'm not saying here, Prabhu. I'm saying two things.
This is what Garuda is saying. This is what Garuda is saying.
We're not. No, Prabhu. Don't jump ahead like this. The first thing is the mind is part of the body. Like if you have a human body, you have a human mind. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't debate.
You've also. So you're saying also Srila Prabhupada could forget where his glasses are.
Yes.
Okay, so in that case...
That doesn't mean he's not in Sudasattva. That doesn't mean his teachings are contaminated with defects.
No, Prabhu. First of all, listen to this, right? I'm Prabhupada's servant. Prabhupada forgot where his glasses are, and then Garuda says to me, Prabhu, even if there are defects in the spiritual master's body, including the mind, they should not be criticized.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about insignificant forgetting his glasses. We're talking about,
first of all,
Garuda is talking about Prabhupada's misogynistic, painful statements, blah, blah, blah.
You collapse too many things together, man.
He's not talking about defects of forgetting glasses. He's talking about defects in Prabhupada's teachings.
No, Prabhu, we're not talking about that right now. The question I asked you was, before we go any further, this understanding here, is this an accurate understanding from what is written above it? And that's all we're examining right now. Like the general principle that even if there are defects in the spiritual master's body, including the mind, they should not be criticized. That doesn't mean that they should not be recognized as defects. Oh, Prabhupada forgot where his glasses are. But the Bhakta does not judge or limit the potency of the spiritual master on the basis of any bodily defect. Now, that to me is a valid extraction of the principle from Prabhupada's purport.
It's concocted. It is concocted. You can look at the nectar. I just read the nectar of instruction. It says nothing about seeing defects in the mind. Defects in the mind imply there's some anarthas in the mind.
No, Prabhu. First of all,
you can't say that Prabhupada had anarthas. What is the context of this thing? What kind of defects is he referring to? He just said in the previous chapter the kind of defects in Prabhupada's teachings. These are the kind of defects.
Don't jump outside of this paragraph. Here,
you have to see the paragraph in the context of the previous paragraph. You can't just say, "Oh no, this sentence seems right to me," without looking at the context.
Understand this paragraph and then apply it to the previous thing.
I've understood the paragraph.
This is the error that you're making.
There's nothing in nectar of instruction where it describes this Prabhupada. There are verses there, the purport is there. There's nothing about defects in the mind.
Yeah, so let me speak to that.
Idea. That is you have a philosophical speculation that the body includes the mind.
Stop.
But that's not
I understand.
Prabhu, stop.
I understand what you're saying.
I love your passion. I love your passion. I really do. But hold your horses, because we are talking. We're not arguing here. We exchange in our way of understanding. So let's hold our horses.
So the thing with this here, Prabhu, is in the nectar of instruction, it does not talk about the mind, but it does not say that the mind is explicitly not included. And when we look at our Sankhya philosophy, we understand that the mind is part of the body. in Western philosophy, when we're preaching to people and they talk about the body-mind problem, we say the mind is part of the body. You're a 5-year-old body, you have a 5-year-old mind. You're in a human body, you have a human mind.
We don't need to discuss that. I accepted that.
Okay.
All I'm saying
so
is
therefore,
I accepted the mind is a part of the body. I accepted that.
Okay.
So we don't need to discuss that.
And so I understand.
And clarifying his understanding, and please, hold your horses.
In the Nectar of Instruction purport with relation to this verse, it does not give an example that includes the mind, but it also does not exclude the mind from the body. And if you don't exclude the mind from the body in our philosophy, that means that the mind is included. That is how Garuda has arrived at this conclusion.
No, because the spiritual master we have a whole teaching about understanding the mind. There's 3 modes of material nature. The mind can be in Tamagun, the mind can be in Rajagun, the mind can be in Sattvagun, the mind can be in Sudasattva. So which one is the Uttama Bhagavat in?
Well, here's my question about that, Prabhu. If we're talking about defects in the mind...
Answer the question first. Which one is he in?
Which one is the Uttama Bhagavat in?
Which guna of mind is the Uttama Bhagavat in?
I do not know.
What makes his qualification to be an Uttama Bhagavat is the state of his mind, which is Sudasattva. I'll give you the answer.
Okay, what is your evidence? What is your evidence for that? Where is your evidence?
What, that a Vaishnava
Where are you citing that from?
A Brahmana
that
is in
Uttama Bhagavat, his mind is in Sudasattva.
You dispute what I'm saying here, that a Brahmana is in Sattvagun, that a Kshatriya is in Rajagun, and the mix.
No, I'm asking you.
Teaching. I mean, it's not disputed. No. I don't have time now to find the reference.
I gave you mine. It's Bhagavad Gita 15:9. Now there are 4 defects of the conditioned souls. So you're disputing
with me that the 3 modes of material nature apply to that, and that a pure devotee is in Sudasattva. You're disputing that point. That I must give you.
No. What is it that I just did with you? So I'm saying no, I'm not doing that, and I'm asking you, what did I just say to you?
About what?
So you made the claim. You asked me the question, which is what guna is the mind of the Uttama Bhagavat in? I responded, I do not know. You made an assertion that it's in Sudasattva, and then I said what?
That I must prove it. Well, I
did not say. No, stop. I did not say that.
No, you asked me for scriptural reference.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm asking you for a scriptural reference.
Well, we're all devotee. do I have to go and... you believe in reincarnation. Find me scriptural reference. This is basic things. This is ABC knowledge. I don't think anyone's disputing that.
No, I am, because I said that I don't know that. No, I said I don't know. I don't know that.
Well, you're going to have to trust me. I don't have time to find the reference right now. You're going to have to trust me on this point. It's there in Shastra. I'm not making it up. I mean, if you want to look for it later, I can guarantee you 100% that it's there.
Hold a second. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Get it for me.
All the devotees here, I don't have to give scientific evidence.
Prabhu, stop.
This is not a controversial
point. So it could be options here, could be options like, okay, I don't get it right now. I know it exists. I don't have it. I will find it and send you in a link or by a message.
Sorry, just 1 second. 1 second. This qualification or symptom of a Madhyama Adhikari is that he is capable of supporting his statements with scriptural references. And you want to argue on this paper like this, and you want to come here and make assertions, and you can't back them up with a scriptural reference.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't memorized the whole Bhagavatam for you.
It's okay. It's okay. We have it's okay.
We're not going to dive. Because as you're saying, I don't know the whole Bhagavatam. I'm not qualified. I can't give references.
Don't go into the losing spiral. No. You're doing great.
No,
I just got you on 1 point.
I love the passion. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, by slowing down, we can understand better, because when we are in a when we are full of energy, our mind just goes a little bit hit up, and then we get a bit of a kaboom situation. So take a deep breath, slow down. It doesn't mean you're not a advanced devotee. Simply as a people, as a human beings, sometimes in the moment when we need the scriptures, it disappears, and it's okay. We're not saying you're not. We just Neat.
That-
We will love to have that reference.
The other thing is, Prabhu, I know that you have to start working, and we haven't got to the smoking gun yet. We're close. What do you think about if we do this? How about if we make a part 2 of this when we've got the time to do this last part? Because this last part is the part where you're going to like deliver the killing blow, right? Or we can keep going now. It's up to you. I know your time is
Precious.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
And you want
While
to keep
you're
going now?
talking, yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I think this is a valid interpretation of that verse. That's my conclusion here. So we differ on that, and that's okay. We can move on past it if you like.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to have a different perspective. It is fine.
Okay, so let's move on now. Okay.
Sure.
So now he goes into a lecture from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, now he goes into this whole idea of what is a Uttama Adhikari and what is a Madhyam Adhikari. Okay?
Okay.
But a guru, although he is Paramahamsa, because he is teaching, he comes down as Madhyam Adhikari. He's Paramahamsa. But when he comes to the preaching platform, he must become a Madhyam Adhikari, not to imitate Uttama Adhikari, because he has to teach. He cannot deviate from the teaching. Okay? So now he starts giving his own purport, where he's claiming that he talks about a ascending madhyam and a descending madhyam. So this is on the PDF page 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got it here.
Yeah. So thus there is the descending perfect and the ascending conditioned bhakta. Okay, so he says on page 31, he says, whereas when the latter teaches, he is doing so from within external conditioned circumstances, not from within internal. So he's describing the descending one. So he says the ascending madhyam, he still has internal conditioning. Okay, and then he says the descending, he's still conditioned, but he's conditioned by his external surroundings. Well, that's not internal conditioning.
Where does it say that?
I think we lost here.
On page 31 now,
But where does it say that he's conditioned? Doesn't it just say here that he is doing so from,
no, he says
from within?
he preaches from external conditioned circumstances, not from
within external
state.
circumstances.
It's at the end of the paragraph on the page 103 there.
Yep. For example, Srila Prabhupada speaks with a Bengali accent, as an example.
Well, I'd say what Garuda, the external conditioned circumstances is Prabhupada's colonial Indian upbringing.
Well, he doesn't say that.
Well, he said previously about all the problems that Prabhupada's statements, and this is his solution. The problems are that people perceive his statements as being culturally biased, colonially influenced, sexist, misogynist, and this is his solution that the Madhyam, when he descends, then he becomes a bit conditioned by his external circumstances.
He doesn't say that.
Yeah, he teaches from within external conditioned circumstances.
The Uttam,
So he
when he
doesn't teach
descends,
the pure things, he teaches from within these circumstances.
Yeah, so he speaks with a Bengali accent, for example.
No.
That's an external conditioned circumstance.
That's your own interpretation. Did Garuda mention any problem with Prabhupada's Bengali accent? Was that a big issue?
I'm giving an example. I'm giving an example.
Yeah, you're giving an irrelevant example.
No, I'm not.
I'm actually relevant example,
Prabhu,
which is Prabhupada's colonial bias, is this, that.
Why you link these things together like this before you
Because they're
understand
all in
the point?
one paper. You know, when you put things in one paper, they are linked together. That's why I'm putting it.
Yeah, I know that, but understand the pieces first.
You're bringing in insignificant, irrelevant things like Garuda's talking about Prabhupada's Bengali accent. I really don't think that that's what Garuda's referring to here.
No, but Radha Ramana Prabhu, is this an accurate statement? Yes or no? When the Uttama
No, it's not. I don't think
Bhagavad,
Garuda's paper has anything to do with Prabhupada's Bengali accent. I don't think it's
no, but
particularly
let me ask you a question, Prabhu. Now, Prabhupada's Bengali accent that he speaks with, is that an example of an Uttama Adhikari Bhagavat coming down to the Madhyam platform and speaking from within external conditioned circumstances?
No, it's
I'm not asking about.
No,
It's not.
It's not. Because if you look at this, if you look at the actual where he's quoting from, if we look at the actual lecture where he's quoting from. So this was spoken in Bhubaneswar, 1977, and an audience asked, what's wrong with hearing from someone if he has some knowledge of Krishna, even if he doesn't have Sika, Tilak, what have you? So basically, he's kind of talking about a careless vairagi. Okay, so Prabhupada, I'm referencing from a lecture. The lecture
there's
that
nothing about careless vairagi in there.
No, the person's asking about a kind of renounced Paramahamsa who does not dress appropriately and his looks a bit, a renunciate who's not dressed appropriately. Okay. So Prabhupada answers, this is the injunction of authority. Vaishnav mukha gidam shravanam kartyam, that we have to abide by the orders of the superior. Why there is no Krishna authority says you have to accept. Therefore, Krishna has accepted as Guru by Arjuna. So here, Guru, he has given injunction that exceptional case is different. The Paramahamsa stage. But a Guru, although he is Paramahamsa, now this is where Garuda starts quoting. But a Guru, although he is Paramahamsa, because he is teaching, he comes down to the Madhyamadikari. There are three kinds of Vaishnava, Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama. Uttama may be without Kanti, Sika, without Vaishnava symptoms, but he is Paramahamsa. But when he comes to the preaching platform, he must become a Madhyamadikari, not imitate an Uttama. Because he has to teach. He cannot deviate from the teaching principle. So what you are speaking that without Sika, without Kunti, one can become Guru. This is a fact for the Paramahamsa, not for the preacher. The preacher must behave very nicely. So this is the opposite, actually, of what Garuda is saying. Garuda is saying the Uttama behaves very nicely. But when he comes down to the Madhyam platform, then he becomes conditioned by his external circumstances, and then he preaches some, defective ideas full of misogyny and colonial bias. And
that's not what he's saying. That's Radha Ramana Vacha. That's not what he's saying.
No, it is. This is the external circumstances
Radha Ramana.
Referring to.
Be honest.
That the Madhyamikari becomes conditioned by external circumstances.
He doesn't say that. Where are the words that say
he preaches from external circumstances.
No, from within external conditioned circumstances.
Yeah, so
that's
this is
what
a full
Garuda
concocted
says.
idea. There's nowhere where it says the only difference, the Uttama Bhagavat, his only fault of becoming a Madhyamadikari is that he distinguishes between who is a devotee and who is a non-devotee to preach. This whole idea is that he somehow descends and he speaks from external conditions. That's Garuda's own concoction. There's no reference for that. That's his own concocted idea. He's talking total nonsense here. That is not how you understand how Uttama Bhagavat descends. We don't say that the fact is when Uttama Bhagavat preaches, he's still Uttama Bhagavat. Just because he's preaching now, you don't say, because he's preaching now he must be conditioned, he must be preaching from some external circumstances. That's total nonsense.
I don't think you've understood this. Let me give my Tika commentary on this, right? What this says here is when Prabhupada teaches, he is doing so with his Bengali accent and not from his Indian colonial
now that's
past.
your own thing. No, he doesn't.
That's an application.
He's giving you
You're trying to cite some trivial thing, and that's what Garuda is referring to. There's no reference for Garuda referring to Bengali accent. He didn't write a whole essay to help all his disciples understand how Prabhupada preaches with a Bengali accent. That's really
Prabhu, can I stop you here? So Sitapati just mentioned to you, Prabhu, let me give you my tika, his own commentary. And then you jumping in here saying, no, it's you how you understand it. You basically minimizing him, and I don't
He
appreciate
does
that.
it. He's doing
So
exact same thing to me.
hold
Every
on a
single
second.
thing I says, he
What I
says,
need
where
you to
does
do
Garuda say
is
that? Where
you
does
be
Garuda
able
say
to
that? He
listen.
does the exact same thing to
Be
me.
able to listen. We're having a discussion here. We're not scratching each other. We're having a discussion. He's giving you his point of view, his understanding, his tika. Therefore, I would really appreciate for you just here, listen to him,
All right.
because
Okay.
I do want to listen to you too.
So the thing here, Prabhu, is that when I say to you, where does Garuda say that? I'm saying it because you are giving the Radha Ramana Uvachar Tika on Garuda's paper. I'm giving my tika on the paper also, but I'm responsible.
Yes, so I can also ask
my
you, where does
commentary.
Garuda say that?
No, but here's the thing. I didn't say Garuda said that. I said it's my commentary. Now, when Radha
I'm also
Ramana
giving
says,
my commentary, obviously.
I know that, but Prabhu, listen to me. When you say Garuda is saying this, I say to you, where does Garuda say that? You notice this is the qualification of the Madhyama platform, is that it has to be done by what is actually written there. And I understand that.
Already established I'm not on the Madhyam platform. So
well,
fine.
no, here's the thing about it is your argument against Garuda's, part of your argument is that he's saying things that are not there. But if you want to make that argument, you have to refer to what he actually says.
Yes, that's what I've been reading his whole thing here.
Yeah, and also, Prabhuji, we need to understand you giving your own tika in this paper, and we're trying to give our own tika understanding and commentary in this for actually what it is, not with our, adding something else to where it's not there.
Okay, all right. So let's continue. Continue with your tika. We're running out of time.
Yeah, can we do this, Prabhu? I ask you, I request you to, you do your own commentary for the paper.
What this is
no interpretation.
This is I said this to Garuda, and I think this is what is happening here. See, I've taken that statement that Garuda's made, and I'm saying, yeah, I can see that, and I can apply it like this. What you're applying it to is you've taken it to, there are some people out there who say that Prabhupada is misogynistic, etc., right? And some of his statements are. And when you apply this principle to that idea, you can get one particular interpretation of it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that that's real.
It does mean it's real because they're in the same paper, so they are related to each other, actually. That's why they're in the
exactly.
Same.
Yeah,
that's
they
why they're
are,
in a
100%.
sequence. He gives one idea, another idea. They are actually related to each other.
But let me give you an example here, Prabhu. With this one, when Prabhupada teaches, he might forget where his glasses are, but that's not an internal conditioned state of him.
Yeah, and that's
just the nature of the yantra. It might be irrelevant, Prabhu, but imagine this. Imagine if I thought that
Prabhupada are thinking, oh, it's so painful. How could Prabhupada forget his glasses? How could Prabhupada speak in a Bengali accent? You're trivializing the whole thing by finding trivial examples.
No, Prabhu, you're refuting what I'm saying without understanding what I'm saying first. Do you understand that? Like, you haven't understood. I haven't even finished making my example yet. Imagine if I'm Prabhupada's disciple, his servant, and I see Prabhupada forgot his glasses. And then I think to myself, but you know what? The defects, the vipralipsa of or the forgetfulness of the mind is not a defect of the spiritual master because, blah, 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 not blah, 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 but yada, 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 what Garuda said there. And then imagine this case, that it turns out that Prabhupada did not forget his glasses. I only thought he did. But do you see how I avoided seeing a defect in the spiritual master, even though I had the defect? So in the same way, people might think that what Prabhupada said was misogynistic, and I'm just straight up with you, Prabhu. They are wrong. They're wrong. But you know what? If they do what Garuda says in his paper, they will avoid an offense to Prabhupada. Just like I will avoid an offense.
Not. Yeah, they will not, because he does not challenge their worldview. He does not challenge their worldview. He challenges Prabhupada.
He doesn't challenge Prabhupada.
Where does he say that, oh, well, actually, women are less intelligent? Does he say that? That's you actually, the problem is your problem, not Prabhupada's problem. No, he goes on that it's Prabhupada's problem, that, oh, when Prabhupada descends, he comes to external conditions, circumstances.
Let me answer your question.
Things that you don't agree with.
Now, Prabhu, let me answer your question.
It's not that
now,
you are wrong, Prabhupada is wrong, because he is, because of his external conditioning, that external conditioned circumstances.
Prabhu, let me answer your question. You said, where does he say that?
Yes.
I asked him that directly on the podcast several times.
Your podcast is not evidence. We're looking at his paper here.
Prabhu, here's the thing about it, is you're saying, oh, Garuda's not challenging that. He doesn't. He's on the podcast. He said, people ask me that question. At the Sunday feast, I was asked that, and he showed how he replied to it.
Yeah, that's irrelevant. We're debating what has he written in his paper, which has been put in ISKCON publication. What he said in your podcast is, who cares? It's irrelevant. Where in the paper does he challenge the liberal worldview in this paper? He says he's preaching to them. What kind of preaching is this? Preaching that's degrading the spiritual master. That's his idea of preaching.
Don't ask rhetorical questions. If you ask a question, let me answer it. So you ask the question, where in his paper does he challenge the liberal worldview? I ask you this question, where in his paper does he accept it?
Yeah, he accepts it because he has two options. Prabhupada makes these statements. You have your one option is to defend the statements and explain why they're true. And the other option is that you say the person who said the statements has defects in his mind. So which one did he follow? I don't know. I think it's the defects in his mind one. That's the one he followed.
No,
pretty obvious which one he followed.
No, remember when we looked at it, he gave a third thing at the end, and he is resolving the third problem.
Yeah, the third thing is defects in the mind. That is the fourth thing.
No,
and that was the defects in the mind. That is how it's resolved.
No, it's not, Prabhu. It's cognitive dissonance in the mind of the follower.
That is a completely different.
No, defects in the mind. We just went through the whole nectar instruction, verse 6, and his interpretation, and you just went through a whole thing telling me how the body is the mind, because he's talking about defects in the mind. And now you don't know.
Here it is here, Prabhu. He is not. This is the point here. This is the killing blow for your argument. Consequently, some disciples have claimed that Prabhupada, like any ordinary person, is capable of mistakes and misjudgments. Second option, others remain faithful to the scriptural view. A pure devotee such as Prabhupada is one who cannot be thought of as someone who makes mistakes like ordinary conditioned souls. Now, what he's talking about is a cognitive dissonance.
This is not what he's talking about. This is the third option. He's talking about the fourth option. You are trying to make the third option is now his option. No, he's simply describing a third option. His solution is not, my solution is everyone should have cognitive dissonance. Is that the point of his paper? That we should all be in
no.
The audience for this next part is the option. Prabhu, I took the time to talk to him for 3 hours about his paper to understand it. And I have the Garuda Das stamp that I understood it. This is written for people who have the cognitive dissonance.
Okay, it's written for that, but that's not his solution. His solution is given here, number 4, that there are defects in Prabhupada's mind. That is a solution.
Where does it say that?
Just scroll down. No one should criticize. Scroll down. You just gave me a whole thing about it. That the defects in the spiritual master's body, including the mind. And he even applies it to defective ideas. What's defective ideas of that? These are the ideas of Shastra that he's saying are defective.
Even
if it's conditional.
Even if. It doesn't say there are. It says, it's like Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, even if you think the soul is always born and dies with the body. It's not that Krishna is saying that it is born with the body and dies with the body.
What is the next sentence? Next sentence. This doesn't mean that they should not be recognized as defects.
Yeah, even if there are. It doesn't say that there are. It says even if there are.
His solution to the problem of Prabhupada's teachings is to see these things as defects, not to criticize them, but to recognize them.
No, he's saying
And this can be applied to defective ideas. What defective ideas are you talking? Is he talking about? Is he talking about the defective idea of forgetting your glasses? The defective idea of speaking in Bengali? Which defective ideas are you referring to now? I just don't know. It's completely confusing to me. What defective ideas are you referring to?
Yeah, man. This is good. I told Garuda. He should have told people it's not for them. It's for people who think there are defective ideas, Prabhu. It's a way for them to handle
and this is how he's explaining it to them. You should understand that when the Uttama descends, he talks from a certain perspective, a colonial Indian Bengali perspective, you see? And therefore he might speak with some defective ideas. That's what
you know what, Prabhu? Some people actually think that.
What? The idea that women are less intelligent, so now he's blaspheming Shastra. He's blaspheming Prabhupada, he's blaspheming Shastra. And he's giving a defective idea of what happens when an Uttama descends. When an Uttama descends, he's still an Uttama. He doesn't start talking nonsense, defective ideas, myopic statements. He doesn't give some painful views. It's painful because people are conditioned by nonsense, therefore it's painful.
Yeah, that's not what he's saying. Did you know that you can actually describe an idea?
From it, that is what he's saying. You're misunderstanding what he's saying. I mean, we can go down further. He further elaborates on what he's saying. He explains how the...
Hold on a second. Prabhu, hold on a second. I think here there has been a cross of boundaries here where you just given said you have misinterpreted. Do you mean us with the misinterpreted? And you telling us we misinterpreted that?
He's saying I'm misinterpreting and I'm claiming he's misinterpreting.
Sure. But here's the thing. I checked with Garuda that I understood the paper. You haven't done that.
That's irrelevant because he's obviously not going to accept.
No, it is relevant, Prabhu. In order for... Hold on a second. Prabhu, stop shooting. Stop shooting many words. Listen up. In order for you to be more powerful in your arguments, you have to go to the person who created that.
Yes, okay? I did.
So we did that.
In the comment section, I did my petition.
Hold on a second, Prabhu. I'm talking. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm talking. So the purpose of this, for us to create this, this paper, it says, okay, I want to understand you where you're coming from. Like the same way we creating the possibility, understanding you where you're coming from. And we took the bold decision to bring this person on the podcast and say, okay, explain to me where you're coming from. Because it's easy to misinterpret with my mind and my cognitive dissonance here. Okay? So he was able to explain to that. Now, if you're having some misunderstandings or you don't agree with that, you have to go to the source, to the person who wrote
that was the point of your first podcast, which was just you didn't really address the issues. You talked about one paragraph in his actual essay here, and then went on about moon landings and women's less intelligent. Only one paragraph.
Let's do this. Let's switch. I will present your position, and then you present mine. How about that?
Okay, but my position is not fully presented here because we haven't fully gone through his paper.
Because he goes further on to now.
He gives further on to give this analogy. He gives this analogy that the Uttama Bhagavad is like a gem.
Let me make sure that I have understood your position and that you're like, okay, Siddhapati did get what I was saying, because we spent a lot of time kind of banging up against each other in this, which I love. Happy are those Kshatriyas to whom come unsought opportunities for battle. But let me make sure that I've got what you were saying and that you're satisfied that, okay, Siddhapati, he did understand that he's just an idiot.
Okay, but let me just finish. We're almost at the end. Can we just finish?
Okay, let's do it. And then I'll represent it to you to make sure that I got it. Okay, let's go.
So after he explains that the descending Madhyam, he becomes there's external conditions and he preaches from those external conditioning. Okay.
Yep.
So then he gives this analogy of a diamond related to his title, Diamonds in the World, that a diamond has a certain setting. You know that you have a diamond and then around it are many other little diamonds. And then he explains that in a similar way, the perfect Uttama Bhagavat will enter this conditioned world and speak the teachings of Krishna Bhakti from within a setting, as it were. Thus, the Uttama Bhagavat will engage the external conditions, and certainly it is easily observable how Prabhupada himself did so. So he's referring to Prabhupada's as he's speaking as a Bengali Indian colonialist. Okay. Then, thus, when the condition, thus when the descending Uttama Bhagavat makes remarks that are clearly informed or influenced by the surrounding culture. Which culture is he referring to? He's not referring to Krishna culture or some transcendental culture. He's referring to some mundane culture and environs that can be understood as such. Even while knowing that such statements may very well come from the Uttama Bhagavat setting. So he's making statements from his setting, his materialistic. You see, we're looking at the Uttama Bhagavat here from a materialistic view. You see, and we're seeing what setting he's talking from, which is exactly what the Nectar of Instruction says you should not do. The student's focus should be on the pure intention behind the statements, despite the non-essential content or teachings. Okay? So basically describing that we should, when it comes to Prabhupada, we should take gold from a dirty place. Because Prabhupada comes from a certain setting, and then we should use what feels right for us to take gold from there, the essential teachings, and reject all the nonsense that Prabhupada teaches due to his.
Where does it say this about taking gold?
This is now my own purport. Sorry for giving my own purport.
Okay, we're into the Radha Ramana.
This is what he's saying. This is what he's saying. He's saying when it comes to Prabhupada, we should take gold from a dirty place.
Please be responsible. It's not what he's saying. It's what you're saying that he's saying.
No, I just gave evidence of what he's saying. He's talking about that the Uttama Bhagavat speaks from a certain setting, a certain culture, and that we should understand where he comes from. We should view him from a materialistic view and understand
where does it
that
say
he's
that?
speaking
If
as
I
a
search
Bengali.
for materialistic, will I find it in here? Materialistic.
You'll find it next of Instruction, verse 6. That's where you're going to find it.
You're jumping a lot.
Which he actually quotes in his thing here.
Materialistic's not in there. But it's one thing when it's like he is saying, and then you say what he said, and then it's like, I interpret that of, or here's my commentary.
Yeah, even while knowing that such statements may very well come from the Uttama Bhagavat setting. What setting is referring to? He says in the previous sentence, the culture that he comes from, as an Indian, as a Bengali, as someone born in a colonial British. This is his setting. So we should know that such settings come, that such statements may well come. So he's saying we should know that a lot of Prabhupada's statements can come from him.
No, Prabhu, he's not saying that. You are saying that.
That's what he's saying. Yeah, and I'm giving evidence. Okay, so which culture is he referring to? Why don't you tell me what is your interpretation? Yeah. Which culture is he referring to? Is he referring to that Prabhupada is giving it from the setting of the spiritual
It's
world?
an interpretation, Prabhu. It's an interpretation
that I'm backing by evidence. You just use the word interpretation to discard everything I'm saying. I'm backing my interpretation by evidence.
I understand that, but understand this. I'm not discarding it. I'm distinguishing it. There are people who write Bhagavad Gita commentaries where they make no distinction between their commentary and the text of the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada did not do that. There is the text and there is the purport, and they are distinct. Now, when you speak, you do not distinguish between what Garuda Das has said and what is Radha Ramantika. And that's what I'm objecting to here. There is a lack of distinction.
Directly from what he's saying, so you obviously know what I'm saying, what he's saying. I'm telling you what it is.
When you say something and I can control F and find that exact statement, that is what Garuda Das has said. When you say, what setting is he referring to, the things he referred to earlier. Now, that is not an unreasonable logical inference to make. However, it is a logical inference, nonetheless.
Obviously, that's why we're here. We're not hearing from Garuda, we're hearing from me. So I'm telling you what is my interpretation of what he's saying, and I'm basing that on what he's actually written here.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that it's what he means, but it is your interpretation of it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
And as far as I'm concerned, it's offensive. You can't say we're going to apply the take gold from a dirty place philosophy to Prabhupada.
Where does it say gold in here? I can't find the word gold in this paper.
That is my interpretation.
Okay, so you find your interpretation offensive. I got it.
No, I'm saying what he's saying is offensive.
No, you're saying that you find your interpretation of it offensive.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well,
I'm getting it like that. So, okay, so just let me clarify my understanding here. So the paper he wrote and how you read it, your interpretation is offensive or how he wrote this paper.
His
So
paper
you're
is
offended.
offensive, and I've given an
Yeah, so
argument, and
that's
I've given
exactly what we're
evidence
just
to
trying to
support my
clarify, Prabhu.
claims.
So
And
your
using the word
interpretation is that it's
interpretation
offensive.
like you've dismissed the whole thing by using the word interpretation. I've given
okay.
evidence
Let
for
me-
my interpretation, and you
Yeah,
are not
now-
giving
now-
any counter evidence. So my interpretation is the correct interpretation. Unless you're giving evidence to dispute what I'm saying, my interpretation is correct.
Okay, according to you. You need to check. Do you know, Prabhu, that according to Vedic debate, in order for you to do that, you need to present your interpretation to Garuda, and then he says, yes, you have understood. And then you can refute him. But let me do that to you now. Let me present my understanding of your interpretation of the paper. Have we gone all the way through yet?
We're running out of time here. I've got like 4 minutes.
Okay, I can do this because that's how good I am. Here is the Sitapati presentation of the Radha Ramana Tika on the Garuda Das Kaviraj paper. So in this paper, Garuda Das Kaviraj begins by characterizing some of Srila Prabhupada's statements, which are unacceptable to modern woke ideologues, as being misogynistic, racist, homophobic, and just plain wrong. Culturally insensitive. And he says that some devotees find them to be painful. Am I correct so far?
Yeah.
Okay. And then in order to resolve this, he says, people can take one of two kind of angles on this. They could either say that Prabhupada's an ordinary conditioned soul with... Sorry?
There were four.
Well, let me give the two that I've got, and then we'll get the omission too. So he says one can say that Prabhupada's a conditioned soul who defective, who can make mistakes like an ordinary man. And then the other way is you can say Prabhupada is completely perfect and everything that he says is perfect. So those are the two ways that he presented
Number
that I
three
got.
is
So you say
the
there are another two?
cognitive dissonance. Number three is the cognitive dissonance, where you try to mix the two together.
Yep. And number four is
Garuda's idea.
Okay. So you say that those are the four different ways of understanding it. Okay, so the cognitive dissonance is where you try to mix the two together and you have a problem. And then the fourth way of understanding it. Now, according to you, this part here is, he says that Prabhupada definitely does have defects in his mind. He has a defective mind. And the statements that the woke people object to are defective. They're objectively defective. Those people are right. And the way of understanding that is that some of the things that Prabhupada says can be dismissed because even if the spiritual master has defects, it doesn't detract from the essential teachings, which is love of Krishna. Is that understanding? Have I understood your understanding of the paper?
Okay, but there also his understanding of how the Uttama Bhagavat descends and speaks from a cultural setting and all of that. I also dispute that is not accurate according to Shastra as to how Bhagavat descends. It's not an accurate understanding. And he's referring to defective ideas he's basically referring to Shastra as defective.
Okay, because and your grounding for that is that because some of the statements that Prabhupada makes are not his, and you gave evidence at the beginning from the Bhagavatam, there was a number of verses from the 4th canto that you quoted at the beginning of the presentation about women being less intelligent, and those are not Prabhupada statements; they're straight from Shastra. So if you reject that and say that's a defect of Prabhupada, by extension, you're saying that's a defect of the Shastra as well. So that establishes your third point.
But he also directly said defective ideas. That's directly from his thing. He refers to defective ideas.
Yeah.
So what ideas are you referring to? He's referring to the Shastric ideas.
Okay. So that establishes your first 2 points, blasphemy of Srila Prabhupada and blasphemy of the Shastra. The deviated interpretation of Shastra, if I understand it correctly, that is your contention there is the general principle that he is extracted from the nectar of instruction includes the mind, but this is not supported because in the purport to that instruction there, the examples that are given, none of them include the mind of the spiritual master.
That's not in the purport. That's directly in the verse.
In the verse.
Yeah. And we
examples
know
of the
what is
body
the
and
mind. And the mind of a Pseudo-Sattva, the mind of a pure Vaishnava is Pseudo-Sattva. And his understanding of the Uttama Bhagavat descending is also wrong. It's not according to Shastra. Okay, I'm going to have to go. My boss is calling me into the meeting.
Yeah, okay, Prabhu. Let me get the petition. First of all, before you go, let me acknowledge you for your conviction and courage. I really admire and respect that. And I also love the way that you're out to cut out Anuttama's tongue by getting him off the GBC. Because, look, I may not agree with you that it's like blasphemy, but I'm like, bro, if you think that it is, you got to be like taking action. Not just one of these guys with the keyboard comments, you know? So we'll put your petition up here. You know, like those who agree, or if you just want to get behind it and support it because it's an epic idea, sign the petition. Where do people go to find that?
I'll give you the link here.
Okay.
Because I'm disgusted that this nonsense can be put in an ISKCON publication. It's just, okay, I'll just put a private chat here.
I think you should write you should write up your thesis and present it in the same, you know, thing. It's like, see, you got to cut out its tongue. You got to go away and bathe yourself in the Ganges, which you could literally do, or you have to defeat him. So you've got to write this thing down and then publish it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you send me the link, Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhu. What's that?
It is published now on your podcast. Anyone can listen and hear my argument.
Yeah. Okay. Here is the petition, folks. Get amongst it. This is the equivalent of cutting off Ashvatthama's hair to cut off his head. This is the Kali Yuga 2023 version of cutting out Anuttama Dasa's tongue. All glories to that great devotee, and of course Bhishma Dev as well, but put him on a bed of arrows with love. Danadev, you want to say something to finish?
Yeah. Like my husband was saying, you know, it takes courage for someone to say, I disagree with this, and write it down on the computer. And it's different when someone says, you know what, I'm going to come and disagree in public. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you are fervent and so passionate about defending Srila Prabhupada. We may agree how we see, how the angles we see things, it's fine. But as long I recognize your passion for Srila
Prabhupada. When Prabhupada is disrespected, they should get angry. You know, and I am angry. You know?
Yeah, and you should be. That's good.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I love it. Love you too, Prabhu. Thanks for taking the time to come on. Have a great rest of the day. Look forward to further conversations with you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for having me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Are we finishing? There's some questions.
Yeah, yeah. There's some. Let's go through the comments. And have a look at them. Here we go. Yuga Avatar in the chat.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he's with Radha Ramana. So we got, you know.
It's fine.
Stoker Krishna G, how do you view Srila Prabhupada's instructions to separate 5-year-old kids from their parents and ship them off to another country to place them in a boarding school? Yeah, I mean, you have to reconcile that. Devotees have to reconcile that for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
They can be like, oh, it was because these people didn't do it and because it was their fault and everything. And that would be what we would call an unintended consequence of that instruction, right?
Right.
That wasn't the intended consequence.
No.
It was an unintended consequence.
Yes, like you given instructions to me and I just follow it without thinking how and take the proper steps to make it happen carefully. Yeah.
Thanks for the comments, Stoker Krishna Prabhu. Will Skelly, shout outs from Fiji. I think he's still in Fiji. Srila Prabhupada can make mistakes and still be a pure devotee. So Will's in the category 1 that Garuda Das describes. Can make mistakes, still be a pure devotee. He's not all-knowing and can err like any other jiva having a human experience. IMHO, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
So there you go. Evidence, proof that some people do think like that, as Garuda Das said, one of the categories. There you go. Represented right out there. Regarding defects in the mind, from Ajit Krishna Das, first editions for the win. Regarding defects in the mind, Srila Prabhupada acknowledged that he committed transcendental mistakes in his writings and that these should be corrected by his editors, though not posthumously. Some of them I do believe. Garuda Das said that there was a list of corrections that they had to do in the first edition Gita once they got the printing rights back from Macmillan.
Right.
But those were specific ones.
Mm.
Will Skelly doesn't believe in reincarnation.
I have zero evidence to support it.
Only
Only
reasonable
reasonable
explanations, but zero
that's it.
proof. Yeah. But I mean, the thing about it is if you approach reincarnation as a scientific theory, it's not like a case of believing in it. Like who believes in gravity or believes in,
You just need to observe.
Yeah, and say what kind of predictions does it make? What's its explanatory power? So yeah, there's certainly scientific evidence for reincarnation, but that's another debate. I'm an agnostic on that. I adopt it as a useful model because I'm a scientist. Quotes must be more accurate to properly show whose commentary is being discussed. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. If you've never read another Bhagavad Gita, you may not appreciate this, but these people will mash up everything. But Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is presented like this: the original Devanagari, the transliteration, the word-for-word synonyms, the translation, and then the Bhaktivedanta purport. Yeah. And they're kept very distinct. Sorry for eclipsing your beautiful moon-like face there, honey. The Bhagavad Gita, though.
Terrible. I'm offended. Okay.
Purvapaksha is the idea that you should be able to present your opponent's position to your opponent in such a way that your opponent will agree and say, yes, this is my position. If you can't do that, then you should not debate. Aroha Rose says, keep it simple, 100. God is love. Song of love, Bhagavad Gita. Prasadam, holy names, show love, be kind. Everyone's a devotee and forgetfulness. A Vaishnava's heart blends with compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Show mercy. Krishna is so kind. Gauranga, Hare Krishna. Aroha
Hare
Nui.
Krishna.
Simple.
Okay. So why would a devotee challenge
a liberal worldview? Devotees are the most liberal. This is great. I don't know what this was just going to say that, lol, but didn't want to be offensive. See, the buddy goes there. That's why people love me or hate me. Krishna is all-knowing. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kia ora Rawari. Will Skelly, the Bhagavad Gita, speaks of reincarnation, citing for the evidence. New comments even.
Will Skelly here.
You want me to show that one?
Yeah.
Okay. You can read that one.
Sitapati, you could present some simple debate classes. I would watch them. I need better debating skills. After watching this, it's clear how important it is to set ground rules for a debate to ensure congruence and clarity. Yeah, it is very important. So you're presenting your ideas very clearly and in your perspective, rather than saying like talking continuously. It's like, okay, what are you talking about now? Sorry, you jumping from topics. It's not clear. Are you shouting?
I don't mind that. I'm fine.
And I know you don't mind that,
I love
but
that stuff.
I know you don't mind, but this is not about us. It's about the people.
Oh,
yeah. So we always have to be considerate about other people. It will be awesome. And I guess the things will scale it. The more you watch his way of how he does it, you can copy it.
Will Skelly says he's in Fiji till Sunday.
Woo! Send some sand.
He said, I like your response to my reincarnation comment. Could chat more about it at some point. Yeah, come on the show. We'll do a show. We'll do an episode about reincarnation.
Oh yes. I don't know how old you are, but I can look into your photo. Maybe are you 29 or 35?
Well, Will, let me tell you this. Will lived in the ashram with me in 1997.
I don't know how old. 1997. Okay. Never mind. But you know what? You must be in your 50s, right?
No, he was like super young, like 16 or something back then.
Then
he was like really young.
Yeah, maybe 30 to 40. Anyways, once upon a time, you were how old? 5. That's the reincarnation in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And you were a newborn. There you go. There's your reincarnation.
He said, what did he say? He said something. He said it to Rawari up here. Here we go. Ta-da! I agree with all you wrote above, but I still have no proof of reincarnation. I don't dismiss the concept of reincarnation at all, but I cannot demonstrate it or prove it other than on the strength of analogy and the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Will be awesome to do your astrology, who you were in your previous life. One of the things. The other thing is how you can prove your evidence. You can do past life regression.
He's the answer to the universe, life, the universe, and everything. He's 42.
42. Woohoo! The new 24.
I just thought of an interesting point. If Srila Prabhupada was challenged on any of these contentious points and defended it, then it's not just a throwaway remark in Vairagya. Whoa, dude, that is an astra right there. That is an astra.
If Srila Prabhupada was challenged on any of these contentious points and defended it,
then it's not just a throwaway remark in Vairagya. So what that means, honey, is this. You could say that Srila Prabhupada made things, that were misogynistic or, just Vairagya carelessness. But remember, we were reading in Tranakata's book, Prahlad Sita. Can you pass me that book there, please? Down there on the bed. So we were reading in Tranakata's book about Prabhupada's visit in 75 to Chicago, which resulted in many, thank you, many amazing pastimes, like, what is it? The awesome Radha Ramana Prabhu just left the, this is going to be epic. We'll pull in a second. In the Science of Self-Realization, the conversation with Lieutenant Mosley from the Chicago police. And then there was the one where he got ambushed by the reporter about women being less intelligent. And he just went for it. Such a famous exchange. Stoker Krishna's point is this. If it's just I couldn't care less, for example, how many windows are there in the Empire State Building? As many as there are drops of water in illusion. It's who cares, right?
Exactly.
But when Prabhupada goes on the point with this lady and defends it and asserts it like that, it's not a throwaway remark.
No.
It's no, this is an essential thing for you to get. This is important to understand because your civilization is falling to pieces around you. And if you don't listen to what I'm saying and take it on board, within the next 50 years, your children are going to be cutting their genitals off. That's basically what that was.
Well, he did so many predictions, about the whole thing. And he said, obviously, he's unapologetic.
Yeah.
He's bold. He says the truth as it is. And you know what? You like it? Well, you like it. You don't? Well, too bad, because that is just the truth. Some people may be able to swallow and actually think about what he's saying and, break it down and have some analyzing aspect to it. Or some people will just refute so badly and get so offended and pained about it. He's so offensive. How is it possible he can treat a person like that? He's this, he's that. They start bombing with so many things here. There's two options here. For some people, you're analytical. For some people, you're so emotional. It is just the nature of people. And my understanding of Garuda Prabhu, it is, if you're analytical about it, you will read it. You will go deep into that. But if you're emotional, you will get be reacted to that.
Yeah, he's essentially offered strategies for people to use to keep practicing and not quit and freak out. And when I checked with him, he was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Now, he himself might be using that strategy for all I know, but he's created a strategy and he's anchored it in Shastra. He hasn't just, come up with it out of nowhere. He has done it with reference to Shastra, a heuristic lens. He's not saying it's the only way. He's various ways. Of course, the danger of it is that it can be misunderstood as a general purpose interpretive theory, or that it's making these assertions. But most of Radha Raman's points would suffer from the fact that Garuda would say, don't worry about that. Garuda would say to those points, you haven't understood my paper. That's what he would say. And the point of departure, there's various points of departure. But this is a good spoiling argument, though. This one here, if you brought this argument, because Garuda would say, because you could, I know for a fact that if I presented Radha Ramana Prabhu's interpretation of the paper, Garuda would say, that's not what it is. I know that because I understand Radha Ramana Prabhu's interpretation. And I know that I do because I presented it to him and he said, you've understood it. And I know that I understand Garuda Prabhu's intention and his interpretation of his own paper because I presented it to him and he said, you have understood. And they are two different things.
Yeah.
And so.
But at least you did checked, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
rather than just not checking by you thinking.
Sure.
You are certain that you understood.
But here's the thing. I'm not even interested in understanding. I'm interested in destroying my opponent. Bit of Rajagun there. Rajagun. The mind of the Uttama Bhagavat can sometimes be in Rajagun. There's no scriptural reference for that, apart from my own personal experience. Here's the thing. Get this. If I was to deploy Radha Raman's argument against Garuda, he would just do an immediate whoosh, disarming by saying, that's not what I meant, bro. You haven't understood it. And that will be the end of that. And then he'd just be schooling me. Let me tell you what it actually means until you can tell me, right? But this here, I could present this. He would say, yeah, you have understood it. And then I'd say, well, let me spoil your argument here because, and that would be an interesting one to see how he would respond to that. Yeah. But the thing about that is like that paper, and I know this from discussing it with Garuda, it's not meant to be a general purpose interpretive theory. So it's like only if you think these things are, and that's why I gave the example, and I will check this example with Garuda, but I know he'll agree with it. I'm fairly certain, a high probability, that if I think that Prabhupada lost his glasses.
This is all the most simple example, honey.
But
that's the most simple example.
But you know what it is?
What?
It is, I see a defect and I am wrong. Right? I think Prabhupada's misogynistic. I'm wrong. I think Prabhupada is, got it wrong with the moon landings. I'm wrong. But you know what? It's not like it's offensive. Okay, I thought Prabhupada lost his glasses. I was wrong. Do you see how that's the same structure? But it's less emotionally charged, right? It's nothing about woke ideology. We can take all that off the table. It's just simply, I saw a mistake that the spiritual master made in something, or I heard Prabhupada say the verse and he said the verse wrong, right? Something like that. But it actually turns out that I was wrong. I misheard it, or I thought it was wrong, but he actually had it right. Right? And so in that case, I don't have to go like, oh, am I right or am I wrong? And I'm like, it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. I can ignore it. And that's what Garuda's paper is about. It's not about whether Prabhupada lost his glasses or not. It's about that.
That's your honest example that you put it on it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But you see, here's the thing. Radha Ramana Prabhu is applying the examples from the paper to the principles in the paper. And when he does that, he arrives at a position that's untenable for him. But for someone who reads that paper and has those issues going on in their head, they're going to be like, thank God this guy has come to save me because I was actually thinking about leaving because I couldn't handle this. And they're telling me that I have to believe this. And look, there's another level where you get that, yeah, they didn't go to the moon, they faked that, but most people are not ready for that. And that's another example. It's not in the paper, right?
No.
But I know for a fact, because I brought that up with Garuda, I'm like, what does this guy think about the moon landing? What does he think about the moon landing? He thinks that even if Prabhupada was wrong about that, it doesn't matter. Savadamam pariyaja mamekam sharanam raja. And that is a valid hermeneutical approach to take to it. That's not offensive to Srila Prabhupada to say, I don't have to commit to something on that. I don't have to commit to something on that. You don't have to. Anyway, this is a good spoiling argument in my analysis. Okay, let's bring in Radha Ramana Prabhu's comment here. He comes through with the goods, folks. Here's my Shastric reference about the mind of the pure devotee. Love it. Lecture on Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, 2172, New York, December 14, 1966. Therefore, we require to be Brahmanas, qualified Brahmanas, then Vaishnava. Brahma jana iti Brahmanaha. Brahma jana iti Brahmanaha. Brahmana does not mean caste. Brahmana means one who knows the supreme Brahman. He is Brahmana. And then after being Brahmana, then you have to transcend that position and put yourself in the pure goodness. This material goodness is contaminated. Sometimes goodness, that's as much as it could handle.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't say the Mahabhagavat Uttama Adhikari is in mine is in Shuddha Sattva.
No.
I mean, it's pointing in that direction, but it doesn't conclusively establish that.
Maybe this message more that you got cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mistakes of the pure devotee
Are part of his Leela. They're transcendental mistakes and they serve a purpose.
correct.
Yeah. You know,
They don't major anyways.
this is from Tripurai Swami Vivi Tripurai. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. You know, for one whose eyes are covered with the salve of love, can see the Lord. And he says that in the eyes of a lover, the defects become like charming characteristics.
That's true.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Can you give an example? Something about me.
If you're not in love,
Yeah.
if you don't have any connection with someone, and that someone's ever like
They stink.
no
They
stink,
smell
but you know, they let's say they say some words that you don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
You okay with that for some time? You're like, okay, he's the way he is, you know. Or let's say you have a defect, like a physical defect.
Mm-hmm.
Actually becomes beautiful because I'm connected to you. I'm in love with you. That's the matter.
Mm.
That's like, it makes you more beautiful, actually. It does. But it's just the brain, how the chemicals just like, wow, so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that one. You know, because you like for Srila Prabhupada, yeah, he can say so many things. He said, you know, he can be harsh and everything. It's like, you know what? He's right. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, offended. You know, it's like he's right.
Mm.
And I guess I'm prepared. Initially, I wasn't because I wasn't devoted. It's like too heavy for me to understand that.
Mm.
But now, if I analyze that, if I observe what he says in the real world, it makes sense to me. And I say, he's right what he's saying.
Yeah. You can discover that. It can take time.
It only takes observation.
Yeah.
You read something, what Srila Prabhupada said very harshly. You compare about you observe what's happening, and let's see. And it's even worse when you actually in that experience.
Yeah.
For example, experience I'm going to give.
Okay.
Let's say Srila Prabhupada said, you know, men and women should get married, not be mingling here and there. It's like, you know, okay. And then you're just free as anything. And then you fell in love with a girl or with a boy. And, you know, Srila Prabhupada said no mingling because Maya and powerful and that. You're going out, you're dating with this girl, you're dating with this boy, you're married to this man or you're married to this woman. And then Maya just took over. And then the guy just went stray or the lady just went stray. Then you will realize what Srila Prabhupada said. Do not mingle because Maya is like this. Then you will understand by experience. And he knew exactly what he was talking about. So therefore, he was straight to the point, very cutting. This is what it is. Don't be like this and follow like this. As otherwise, you will be in this group of like a dogs and cats and everything. And in order for you to follow that, you just need to observe, but don't go through experience. That's why we created our room.
Yeah.
You know, we don't speak with any guys. You don't speak with any ladies if it's not in my presence or I am there, because Maya is Maya. And I don't want to expose myself to that because I know there are very charming guys out there. I tell you. Do I want to expose myself to that? No, because I love my husband and I want to be loved and protected by you. You see? So it's just one example that I can throw out there. Yeah.
Well, Garuda's paper it's an intermediary holding pattern strategy for someone to be able to not reject Srila Prabhupada's teachings outright because they find some parts of them difficult to swallow.
It is.
And if you don't find that, it's not for you.
Mm.
And he's not asserting in there that they are. You can read that interpretation out of it, but it is an interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Like just straight up. It does not assert that in there. You can say, I read it and it infers this, but you're reading it as someone who does not have a problem with it.
But you know, it's really hard for some people to read something and not interpret it.
Well, that
It is really hard to take yourself out of the what it is and what actually your mind and your interpretation, everything is going on.
Remember what I said to Garuda in the podcast? I said, Prabhu, could you have put in here, like, and if this is you, the rest of this paper is not for you. It is written for people who are struggling with some of what Prabhupada said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you remember that?
And he was like, yeah, I'm not going to change it. But, and that's the missing piece in there.
Yeah.
Because at that point there is where Radha Ramana Prabhu's understanding of that paper starts to depart from Garuda's.
Mm-hmm.
It's at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point there, if he said, if you are this, and this is how Bhaktivinoda Thakur does it in Sri Krishna Samhita, you know, he says this is not for these people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you're either an Uttama Adhikari with complete faith, or you're a Kanishta who's just like, just do the thing, you know, and you've never entered into that phase of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, you're just extremely fortunate. I mean, Prabhu's living in the Dham, you know, in Bharat Varsha. It's like
Lucky.
Yeah, it's and this is written for a liberal college, and these people are in the indoctrination system. That's what's written.
Heavily indoctrinated.
And
These university people are heavily indoctrinated, and the people in the school are heavily indoctrinated. You need to think the way their people are telling you to think. They're telling you don't think on your own. You need to think the way I tell you how to think. So yeah, it is required for that because it's challenging for these people to think on their own and be analytical and say, okay, and be observant of the real situation. People are, you know, into that struggle of finding, you know, who they are.
And here's why I appreciated
Mm-hmm.
why I appreciate Radha Ramana Prabhu and appreciate his presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Because the paper is dangerous the way that it's constructed right now.
Mm.
It's open to misinterpretation and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have a warning label on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why now when we did the Hare Krishna Red Pill, we got a content warning at the beginning. In the description, it says who it's for.
This is my opinion.
Yeah, because it's that's important to put in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, if that does become a general purpose interpretive strategy,
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he is pointing to. See, what Radha Ramana Prabhu has done there is he has given a concrete instantiation of that
Mm-hmm.
as a general purpose interpretive strategy for someone,
Mm-hmm.
that they could crystallize it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And if that becomes, and this was Suresh Gensler's point, he was like, I've got no problem if this is a preaching strategy for the university, but like, it doesn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to force everyone to understand it this way, like this is a deviation, that is a deviation. That paper, if it's crystallized in that way, becomes a deviation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily crystallized that way.
Well, the thing, this paper already has been published, I don't know for how long. So
Since this March.
yes, so to change it, I don't know what is the whole, or to add something else, I don't know what it takes.
Well, these are the tikas, the commentaries here. Like Prabhu said, you can now see his presentation in this
His tika.
his tika, in this podcast episode. We're not gonna make it to 3 hours, but it went over the hour that we said. No, tika is a small commentary on a bhasha.
No, I'm thinking this word tika in Quechua, the Inca language.
What does it mean?
Tika means flower.
Okay, it's like a flower offering.
Yeah, tika. Yes, you know, he has his point of view strongly opposed all of that, you know, and I can understand that. I can totally understand. I could actually become one of those persons, you know, like, how is possible he dared to speak about Srila Prabhupada? Yeah. And I love like this intense love he has for Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, it's great.
You know, I love it.
Yeah.
And we need more people like that, you know, to be like very staunch in the way of how they defend Srila Prabhupada and they're ready to jump in, you know, to the first call.
Yeah.
I'm going to face you. I love it. You know, it requires so much power because many people are thinking right now, like, okay, they have so many the fire there to go against that, and they have their words to type it, and just go against, or I mean go and defend Srila Prabhupada, but they don't have that power to come and say, I'm going to do it, the Shakti. I'm going to do it, because they're thinking in them, or maybe I don't want to speak for them, but maybe they're thinking, oh my gosh, I will embarrass myself. Oh no, these people I don't want to mix with these people, or whatever they're thinking. But he just come up.
Is it going to open this thing? Yeah, it's opening. Here, look at this. Bing! Let's bring it up. Check this out. This is Prabhu's great point there, Ajita Krishnadas. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So, again, this is like, it may be imperfect, And Srila Prabhupada himself puts this in his introduction, I believe. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also uses this. It's in his introduction to the Bhagavatam. We'll pull out in a second. But here's Radha Ramana Prabhu's hide the current content. How do I do that? Like this. Here's his petition, Radha Ramana Das, realigning ISKCON's leadership with Srila Prabhupada. Contact Prabhu being forced to resign. Okay, he resigned, but yeah. See this? We demand that GBC Anuttama Das be removed from his position for endorsing and publishing blasphemy against Srila Prabhupada. Now, well, here's the thing, honey. I might agree or disagree with that as an assessment, but I'm just 100% like that. If that is your assessment, if you think that that's what he did, then this is what you need to be doing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that's consistent with that position in the Shastra.
Yeah.
You read it, it says, cut out his tongue, that's what this is. Be removed from his position for endorsing and publishing blasphemy against Srila Prabhupada. Look at this. Echoed by the Indian Continental Committee.
Who is this dude, Anuttama Das?
He is Gauravani's stepfather. You know Gauravani?
Stepfather.
Yeah.
Gauravani, the
Gauravani,
singer.
yeah.
Okay.
And he is the he's the communications minister of ISKCON.
And what did he do that he's blaspheming Srila Prabhupada?
Oh, he wrote a foreword to Kante's book. Kante's book, Perfect Questions, Difficult Answers, I think it's called. But we haven't finished reading that book. But I mean, well, yeah. But Kante Prabhu's book, he does take the position that Srila Prabhupada is conditioned. Garuda's one is like, you might interpret it this way, and if you do, here's how you can deal with it without becoming an offender.
Yeah.
Kante's book is, these are actual problems with what Prabhupada said, and it's because Prabhupada is partially conditioned. Yeah.
That is completely different than he's asserting it.
Yeah, he asserts it. Garuda opposite says, like, some people are going to go down these pathways, and here's how you don't publish a book like that. That's what Garuda's paper is. Garuda's paper is, here's how you go down these pathways and you handle the cognitive dissonance without publishing that book. You don't commit to that. And people are like, well, he's slippery. And it's like, I don't want to commit to it. I may not understand it. I might think one way or another way about it, but I'm not going to, I'm not.
Yeah, I think there's a safe position to say, I don't want to, safer. I don't want to offend. I'm not highly, trained or highly elevated soul to understand and get myself in the life, in the mind and body of Srila Prabhupada and how he was thinking and doing things. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that because nobody is able to do that. But asserting that he was doing, it's a little bit of a red flag.
You might think that, but you'd have it in advance. But then, Conte he's kind of done it for the same reason that Garuda has, to offer it as a way of thinking your way through it. This is the characterization of the Madhyama phase, is that you go from a Kanishta and you're just like, yeah, everything says absolute truth, Then what happens is that faith, Kanishta, it means like Katnishta, it means it's not fixed. Yeah. It's actually brittle. So what can happen to you then is you go, after a while, someone fries you out, and then you're like, those things suddenly become problems. Yeah, and then you leave. and you lose all your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or you go into the Madhyam phase where you start to try to have to grapple with the stuff, and then you're using logic and you're investigating the Shastras yourself, and you're open to the possibility that Prabhupada got it wrong.
Okay, how can you make sure that he got it wrong?
Here's the thing about that is people are like, what? Open to the possibility that Prabhupada got it wrong? Yeah, because you're actually investigating it, and people go, well, you just say that because it's your religion and you have to believe that. And you're like, no, I don't, because you're a Madhyamadikari now and you're using your critical intelligence and everything. You're like, I investigated it all the way down to the bottom myself, and I arrive at the same conclusion that he does, the long
similar.
way.
Mm.
I went, it's like, one thing is like, your parents can tell you that, 5 times 10 equals 50, and you don't even know how to do multiplication. You just memorize it, and then you go around and recite it. But then the other thing is you go and you work out how to work everything out yourself, And then what if you find something that they told you to memorize the stuff, and you understand how all the theory and everything works, and you find out one of the things that they had you memorize was wrong, Maybe, or anyway, maybe it's too conceptual for people now, but I listened to lots of lectures by Tripura Swami describing the different phases of the Kanishta, the Madhyam, and the Uttama, and it is important to understand who your audience is and what your qualification is. And that is the biggest issue that I personally have with the paper.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Who it's written for, why it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Does Garuda Das think those things? Now, here's a question. And this is what I thought would be the issue here, and I'm very strong on this hypothesis that does Garuda think those things himself? Does he think that those things are, is he woke, in other words?
That's a question that you have to ask directly to him, you see?
Well, the other question is this.
We cannot speculate about it.
Well, does it make a difference whether he is or not to the paper, to what's in the paper?
Does he make it or not? I guess it does.
Does it?
Well,
for example, now this is what I said to Garuda. I said, what happens when you apply the paper to the paper itself? Ready for this?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. What happens when you apply the paper to the paper itself? Now we're getting into real mind-twisting stuff. What does that mean? That means that you're like, man, it disappeared. Let me see if I can get it back.
It's a mental gymnastic.
It is. It's a mental gymnastic, but it's important. It's like
you have to be highly
mentally flexible.
Concentrated.
Yeah, concentrated. What happens when you apply the paper to the paper itself? And that is that written for Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttama Adhikaris. Yeah, is Garuda Das an Uttama Adhikari coming down to the Madhyama platform, or is he an ascending Madhyama? Because remember, the ascending Madhyama is contaminated by internal contamination. So Radha Raman's assertion about the author of the paper is that Garuda is contaminated by woke ideology, and what he's expressing here is a contaminated philosophy, right? Or is Garuda Das an Uttama Adhikari who is not contaminated by woke ideology, but is like, for the woke people at the university, I'm going to give them something that is based on the Shastra and is consistent with it, and is a way for them to handle reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, with its quotes about women, with its quotes about, sex life, women independence, women less intelligent, 2 million years of Bhagavad Gita on Earth, 120 million in the solar system. With all of that, I'm going to give them a hermeneutical strategy where the wokest university students can read Bhagavad Gita as it is, and I'm going to give it to every single student who comes through here.
With that.
So, but my question, the question is, if you take that last part about the ascending Madhyama or the descending Uttama, which one is Garuda? Now, if you say that he's an ascending Madhyama and he's contaminated by woke ideology, and the paper is his own way of reconcile that cognitive dissonance, in other words, Garuda himself has that cognitive dissonance. And he's saying, guys, this is how I've dealt with it personally. Or is Garuda Das like transcendental to that? And he's like, I've got all of these students in front of me, because remember, he's got disciples and he has his students in his lectures. And he's like, I've come up with a way for them that works. And I can apply it to every student who comes in here, and it works on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like every single one of them. When I explain it to them like this, everyone goes away like, oh, okay, great. I'll keep reading it.
Mm.
Yeah. So anyway, that's like the question of what happens when you apply the paper to itself.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting questions.
Yeah. Anyway, mental flexibility. I'm going around all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to take these last things, and then we'll do the.
We go for dinner. I'm hungry.
Oh, yeah. Srila Prabhupada said he did not understand the 5th canto perfectly, and that his disciples should seek help understanding it so the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium could be made correctly. So Srila Prabhupada acknowledged that there were portions of Srimad Bhagavatam that he did not understand. Man, when was it? Charana Renu had a PhD in astrophysics from Cambridge, or from one of the universities over there. And she pulled me into this group like 20 years ago, which was investigating the Puranas to try and pull this together in this group that's still going on now, trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just having a few thoughts. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ate meat for the first 42 years of his life. I know he ate fish. I'm not sure about other stuff. But he was a pure devotee sent from Krishna Loka. In my understanding, these imperfections, ignorances are orchestrated by Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. One purpose might be to let the pure devotees live lives that we can relate to. If they're too otherworldly, we might not be able to relate. I'm going to say that was. And let me check with you, Ajit Krishnadas, if my 2nd edition edit, where I said otherworldly, we might not be able to relate, is correct or not, because editing without verification is a deviation. We're going to get Tranakata on, the author of Oh Hare Krishna Airport. It's so good, man. This book is
We're
amazing.
about to finish.
Yeah, here's where we're up to in this book. We're about 2/3 of the way through. My editor's correct. Ta-da! Epic. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who commented. Ajita Krishnadas, Will Skelly, Stoker Krishna, Radha Ramana Prabhu, well, he commented as well as coming back on.
What's his name?
Rawiti
and
Aroha.
Aroha.
Forrester Hilton, aka
Yay.
Yogavatar Prabhu. Sorry to unmask you and give away your identity on the internet.
Oops.
Everyone else who's watching in the future, keep leaving your comments. Thanks if you made it this far. No other things planned for this weekend, because we got a few things on this weekend. This was our episode for this weekend. I'll probably do another Vedic Intel report, and we got the Bhagavad Gita as it is.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share it, spread the good news of the Bhagavad Gita and the Vaishnava Voices podcast. I appreciate your time. We love you. Param Vijayate, Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, and before we go, thank you to Radha Ramana Prabhu for coming on and for so passionately demanding consequences for what he sees as blasphemy. I may not agree with it, but I respect it. Yeah. And that I think is the main thing, is that we can all
agree to disagree.
Yeah. And respect
be happy.
each other.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Haribol.
you. Hare Krishna Prabhu.